Chapter 729. In order to establish a foothold in the immortal martial continent, especially after the turmoil in the Qianqing school, Zhang Xiu urgently needed to establish his prestige and intimidate those sects who thought that the Qianqing school had lost many immortal kings and their strength was greatly reduced. Zhang Xiu had been in the immortal martial continent for 3,000 years, so he understood this principle too well. And he wouldn't return to the immortal martial continent for the time being. He had asked Ji Wuhua about Shui Wuyao's situation, and she said that Shui Wuyao's situation might be more troublesome. Mental illnesses were more difficult to treat, much more difficult than external injuries. However, this difficulty was not due to technical reasons, but because it would take a long time. Sect Master, is it okay to destroy the Dao Si sect? Although Ji Wuhua had lived a long life and was famous in the immortal martial continent, she was an immortal doctor. Her life's purpose was to treat people's illnesses, and she had never participated in the struggle between sects or fighting for fame and fortune. Therefore, she had never seen such a scene before, and she couldn't help but feel a little sad. Zhang Xiu was used to this kind of thing, but it was just that in the past, it was only the imperial dynasties that were destroyed, and there were very few small and medium-sized sections. As for the big sects, it had never happened before. This was the first time. It was also because there had never been a precedent of a big sect being destroyed by a single person that this matter would definitely cause a great uproar in the immortal martial continent. Qianqing School and Zhang Luoxia would shock the immortal martial continent. What does it matter? Zhang Xiu asked faintly. In his opinion, it was not only no matter. On the contrary, it was more reliable than showing mercy. It could even be said that there were hundreds of benefits. If someone asked why Zhang Luoxia destroyed the Dao Si sect, the answer would naturally be that the Dao Si sect and the Qianqing school fought for the control of the Western Zhou country, and the result was the destruction of the Dao Si sect. After this, any disciple of the Qianqing school who dared to compete with the Qianqing school in the face of benefits would have to consider the revenge of the Qianqing school. This battle strengthened the powerful capital of the Qianqing school. This had always been Zhang Xiu's style of doing things, and this was also the reason why everyone called him Old Demon Jiang. However, in the past, he had only destroyed small sects and imperial dynasties, and the largest were only medium-sized sections. In order to destroy a medium-sized sect, the Qianqing school, he had to mobilize many immortal kings. And this time, Zhang Luoxia was the only one who destroyed a large sect. This would definitely shock the immortal martial continent. Ha! Ji Wuhua was speechless. Indeed, she couldn't think of anything. The immortal martial continent had always been a place where strength was respected. Su Ying didn't think much of it, and Ming Du was even more cruel than the other sections. Although Ji Wuhua was also from Ming Du, she had been away for too long. Moreover, she was the princess and saintess at that time. She was well protected and focused on her medical skills. It could be said that she did not care about the outside world. Sect leader Jiang, this battle can be said to be an unprecedented battle in the immortal martial continent. In the future, it will definitely be passed down as a legend. Su Ying's beautiful face was a little red. She had personally witnessed everything, and her impression of Zhang Xiu became even stronger. Women all worshipped the strong, especially when Zhang Xiu was already extraordinary in her heart. Zhang Xiu smiled. He didn't care if it was an unprecedented battle or not. He, Zhang Luoxia, had more than just this battle that shook the entire immortal martial continent. I wonder how the Consonance Pavilion will define this battle? Su Ying stood behind Zhang Xiu. She could only see his long hair fluttering in the wind, and that powerful aura of a king. She secretly mused in her heart that no wonder her foster father admired him so much, and no wonder everyone was talking about him. He was indeed an extraordinary person. The Consonance Pavilion? Zhang Xiu frowned. The people of the Consonance Pavilion weren't saints. Zhang Xiu had almost destroyed their reputation, and from the fact that they had almost harmed him, he knew that the people of the Consonance Pavilion weren't so magnanimous. If things went wrong, he might mess up his performance badly this time, or even blacken his reputation. The Consonance Pavilion is omniscient, they should have recorded it as such. They are still very neutral. Ji Wuhua spoke. Her words weren't without reason. She was one of the 3 most outstanding immortal doctors in the immortal martial continent. She should have interacted with the other 2 before. She should be clear about the situation of the Consonance Pavilion. She should have acknowledged the judgment of the Consonance Pavilion. Omniscient. These words gave Zhang Xiu a different feeling. Was there really an omniscient existence in this world? Zhang Xiu didn't believe it. It wasn't because he had a grudge with the Consonance Pavilion, but because he rationally believed that such a situation wouldn't exist. However, this made Zhang Xiu think of something. When was the Consonance Pavilion founded? It seemed that all the legends of the immortal martial continent originated from the Consonance Pavilion. The history could be traced back to a very long time ago. Ji Wuhua and Suing glanced at each other and shook their heads. There was no one in the immortal martial continent who could answer this question. It should be very long ago. Can it be traced back to the beginning of the immortal martial continent? The people of the immortal martial continent were different from the people of Earth. They studied magic, formations, and talismans. They didn't trace back to the origins of the human race. Therefore, no one really thought about when the immortal martial continent existed and how it existed. But the Consonance Pavilion also has records about the ancient era. Suing said, yes, it should have existed before the immortal martial continent. Zhang Xiu muttered to himself. A thought popped up in his mind. If the Consonance Pavilion really existed before the immortal martial continent, then it was very likely that they knew about the Buzhou god and the goddess. Especially the origin of the goddess. Thinking of this, Zhang Xiu turned to look at Ji Wuhua. Suing definitely didn't have the authority to ask the Consonance Pavilion, but a high-level immortal doctor like Ji Wuhua might have the opportunity to ask questions. Can I ask the Consonance Pavilion? Ji Wuhua nodded. The authority isn't high, but there is one. She thought that Zhang Xiu should have more authority than her because she wasn't good at anything outside of medicine. Find a ruined temple on the mountain ahead. Yan Xulong replied, Yes, master. He immediately rushed towards the mountain range below. His eyesight was astonishing. Even if there were mountains and towering trees, he could find the ruined temple with a glance. The 3 of them appeared outside the ruined temple in a flash. Ji Wuhua said, Sect Master, do you want me to ask questions? Zhang Xiu said, Go in and ask a question. What is the relationship between the goddess of Western Zhou and Zhang Luoxia? Why does she have to kill Zhang Luoxia? The 2 girls looked at each other. That was an ancient statue. Why would she want to kill Zhang Xiu? Okay. Ji Wuhua didn't say much. She was now Zhang Xiu's maid. Although whether she was a Tongfang maid was still debatable, she certainly wouldn't refuse Zhang Xiu's order. She turned and entered the ruined temple. She pressed the Consonance Pavilion statue and asked the Consonance Pavilion. A clear voice came from inside. What is the relationship between the goddess of Western Zhou and Zhang Luoxia? Why does she have to kill Zhang Luoxia? A male voice came, Immortal Dr. Ji, please wait a moment. Whenever someone asked the Consonance Pavilion a question, the Consonance Pavilion would have to read the files. It was impossible for these people to record everything in their minds. But the speed at which the Consonance Pavilion read the files was very astonishing. Although they didn't have computers, they were still very fast. But what she received was a sentence. Immortal Dr. Ji, your question exceeds your authority to ask questions. The Consonance Pavilion can't answer. Ji Wuhua sighed and asked, What level of authority do you need to ask this question? The other side said, This is a question of full authority. Zhang Xiu heard it clearly from outside. Since this question couldn't be answered, it meant that there was an answer. Moreover, it was said as a question with full authority, which meant that the level was still very high, and the impact was still very big. Okay, thank you. The other side said, Immortal Dr. Ji, your question is reserved. Do you have any other questions? Ji Wuhua shook her head and said, No. When Ji Wuhua came out, Zhang Xiu said, I heard it. Let's set off. Okay. Ji Wuhua was also a bit helpless. Zhang Xiu had helped her so much and was now her master, but she had no way to repay him. Of course, she was a bit disappointed, but the question of full authority was too difficult to solve. Zhang Xiu originally had a question of full authority, but it had already been used by Zhang Xiu to deal with Hua Luing. Now he had to think of a way to get another one, but it was indeed very difficult. He needed a very good opportunity, but since the Consonance Pavilion knew the answer, then Zhang Xiu had a chance to figure out the whole story. Chapter 730. Normally, Consonance Pavilion wouldn't give a question with full authority. The reason why Zhang Xiu was able to get it last time was because it was related to the reputation of Consonance Pavilion. That was why they gave Zhang Xiu a question with full authority. Zhang Xiu muttered to himself. Now that there was a rift between him and Consonance Pavilion, his questions could be said to be history. The opportunity to get this question with full authority couldn't be under his name, it had to be given to someone else. Humph. Zhang Xiu coldly snorted. Wait until I find the headquarters of your Consonance Pavilion. Let's see if you will tell me. No one knew where the headquarters of Consonance Pavilion was, and no one had ever been there before. However, one thing was certain, it was definitely somewhere in the immortal martial continent. As long as it existed, it would definitely be found. However, after so many years, no one had ever found the location of Consonance Pavilion. Perhaps it had something to do with the fact that Consonance Pavilion had always been neutral. If there was no conflict of interest, then no one would waste their time to find it. However, Consonance Pavilion had lost its neutrality when it came to Zhang Xiu. Then, they shouldn't blame Zhang Xiu for finding them. Sect Leader Zhang, Sky Edge Peak is just ahead. Su Ying said excitedly. Her face was slightly red. Ever since Shui Wuyao went crazy, she had thought of all sorts of ways to cure him. In the end, she found out about Ji Wuhua's whereabouts and convinced Ming Du for 60 years. Today was the first time she returned to the sect. 60 years was not a short period of time. And this peak was very famous. Back then, Shui Wuyao had brought Zhang Xiu to visit it. More importantly, they had fought on this peak. The result was Shui Wuyao's defeat. They were both genius sword cultivators. Naturally, they were not convinced of each other's strength. A competition was inevitable. Of course, this was not a competition of benefits. If it was just a competition, it would be even more pure and would make these cultivators even more infatuated. Anyone with a high cultivation base was actually a technical maniac. Those who were technical maniacs were naturally infatuated with their own research. The battle at that time was incomparably exciting. However, Zhang Xiu was even more outstanding. Shui Wuyao was not defeated by a single sword strike. Although their strengths were very close, he was strangely suppressed by Zhang Xiu. Su Ying said, "Father told me that you two fought on the world's edge peak back then." Zhang Xiu smiled. Father said that he had a chance to win at that time, but his luck wasn't too good. He just happened to encounter your epiphany of Sword Dao and was suppressed by you all the way. This was the truth. However, what my father didn't know was that from then on, not only was he unable to catch up to you, he was instead pulled further and further away by you. Indeed, Zhang Luoxia's cultivation speed was the fastest in their generation. Once he was surpassed, there was no possibility of a comeback. The gap would only grow wider and wider. But you formed a friendship. Zhang Xiu felt very ashamed of Shui Wuyao in his heart. Did that gay man have some thoughts about him that he shouldn't have? Now, if my father can recover as he wishes and discover sect head Zhang's current cultivation, I'm afraid he won't have any thoughts of catching up to you. Zhang Xiu's current cultivation was truly abnormal in Su Ying's eyes. Zhang Xiu said, "There's always a sky beyond a sky, and a person beyond a person. Above a divine king, there's still a divine emperor." Although there are all sorts of rumors about divine emperors in the immortal martial continent, in reality, no one has actually seen one. Could it be that there really are divine emperors in this world? Zhang Xiu said, "Of course there are. Cheng Lingsu was a divine emperor, and the goddess could also be a divine emperor. And in the immortal martial continent, there were rumors of sword emperors and saber emperors. Zhang Xiu definitely wouldn't be a frog at the bottom of a well. Moreover, the one he would eventually face was an emperor-level character. In the distance, he could faintly see the many palaces in the mountains. One of the few ancient sects in the immortal martial continent, the Immortal Tribulation sect, had arrived. Misty clouds and misty clouds, it was a scene of a holy land of immortals. Compared to Qianqing School, the Immortal Tribulation sect's status was much higher, and its strength was also much stronger. It also had a powerful foundation that outsiders didn't know about. Ji Wuhua said, "Xiaoying, you haven't been back for a long time. You must be very excited." Su Ying nodded repeatedly. "I haven't come back even once these past few years. And in the sect, I only have contact with my eldest senior brother, the person sect head Jiang met at the underworld crossing. As for the others," Su Ying said, "this is good. Now that we've found immortal Dr. Ji, there's finally hope for my father to recover." Thinking of this, her mind recalled Shui Wuyao's crazy appearance, and her heart ached. Ji Wuhua said, "Insanity isn't difficult to treat. The reason why ordinary people can't treat it is because Shui Wuyao is an immortal king. His self-protection is activated, and ordinary people can't enter his heart and awaken him again. But I can do it. I just need a bit of time." Su Ying said, "That's great." The person in front of her was Ji Wuhua, who was known to be able to revive a person's bones. Moreover, it was just a symptom of insanity. Arriving in front of the sect, Su Ying cupped her hands and said to the gatekeeper, "Senior brother, this one is a disciple of Shui Wuyao's faction." That person looked at Su Ying. "Disciple of Elder Shui's faction?" His eyes revealed disdain. After Shui Wuyao went crazy, his faction's disciples were naturally looked down upon. However, Shui Wuyao didn't like to take in disciples. In order to catch up with Zhang Xiu, he spent almost all of his time on how to catch up with Zhang Xiu. "This is Qianqing School's sect head, Zhang Luoxia. Please report to the sect head on my behalf." That person was suddenly shocked. "Zhang, sect head Zhang? Okay, I'll go report immediately." There weren't many people who could be personally received by the Immortal Tribulation sect's sect head, but Zhang Luoxia was definitely qualified. Sure enough, not long after, a white-bearded elder was seen flying out from the depths of the sect. Zhang Xiu frowned slightly. The person who came wasn't the Immortal Tribulation sect's sect head, but the Immortal Tribulation sect's guardian elder. "It really is sect head Zhang. Long time no see, sect head Zhang." Zhang Xiu had been to the Immortal Tribulation sect before and had met this guardian elder several times. "Elder Song." Elder Song bowed to Zhang Xiu and explained, "Sect head happened to be out of the sect, so I've neglected you. Sect head Zhang, please forgive me. May I know why sect head Zhang is here?" So he wasn't here. Zhang Xiu didn't think much of it. He didn't come here to see him. He pointed to the white-haired and white-bearded elder and said, "This is Ji Wuhua." This name was definitely resounding. "I specially invited him to treat Brother Shui's illness. With immortal Dr. Ji treating him, there's no way he can't cure Brother Shui's insanity." Elder Song should be happy after hearing this. An immortal king in the sect had gone crazy. This was a huge loss, especially Shui Wuyao. His sword technique was also one of the top in the sect. However, a trace of annoyance flashed across Elder Song's face as he said, "Sect head Zhang, immortal Dr. Ji, please return." Zhang Xiu was astonished. Before he could speak, Su Ying asked in astonishment, "Why?" Seeing that her foster father had a chance to recover, how could she miss such an opportunity? Ji Wuhua wasn't that easy to invite. "Who are you?" Su Ying crossed her arms. "Elder Song has forgotten about this disciple. This disciple is Elder Shui's foster daughter, Su Ying." Su Ying? Elder Song was enlightened. Only now did he remember that Shui Wuyao did have a foster daughter. There were too many people in the sect. Of course, he couldn't remember these second-generation people. This person came with Zhang Luoxia, so she definitely couldn't be a fake. "Since you're a disciple of the sect, how can you question this elder?" Su Ying said anxiously, Elder, this disciple was rash. However, there's finally hope for father's illness. Why don't you let immortal Dr. G treat him? Elder Song said, Elder Shui has gone completely crazy. The sect has ordered that no one can treat Elder Shui's illness anymore. What kind of strange order was this? There were even people who wanted the elder to continue going crazy. Continue going crazy. Jiang Xiu remembered what the old procurist told him. Ever since Shui Wuyao went crazy, his sword Dao improved by leaps and bounds. These people refused to treat Shui Wuyao, hoping that he would continue going crazy. Could it be that it was because of the sword art that Shui Wuyao comprehended? Su Ying said, How can this be? This is too unfair to my father. He has the right to recover. He should be healthy. As she spoke, tears welled up in her eyes. She couldn't control the tears that fell from her eyes. She thought of the immortal king of a generation. After going crazy, he was ridiculed. His intelligence was worse than a 3-year-old child's, and he was bullied. Elder, I'm begging you. Let immortal Dr. G treat my father. Elder Song said, The sect has found out. Forgive this elder for not being able to go against it. He refused very firmly. Elder. Jiang Xiu frowned slightly and said, Then this sovereign came all the way here. It should be fine if we meet. Chapter 731. This request was not too much. With Zhang Luoxia's status, as long as the request was not too excessive, the Tribulation Immortal sect had no reason to reject it. However, what surprised Jiang Xiu was that Elder Zong still rejected it. Sect head Jiang, Elder Shui has already gone crazy. His emotions are very unstable. He cannot take any more provocation. The sect has already arranged for him to cut off all contact with the outside world. Now, she was not even allowed to see her foster father? Why? She was his daughter. Could it be that she did not even have the right to see him when he was sick? Su Ying's face flushed red. However, the person in front of her was an elder of the sect. She could not refute. She was so anxious that her eyes turned red and she was about to cry. Jiang Xiu also frowned. If it was an infectious disease, he could still understand. However, if it was just a mental illness, no one could deprive them of the right to visit as family and friends. His tone turned cold. Shui Wuyao is an elder of the sect. He has also contributed a lot to the Tribulation Immortal sect. Even if he has gone crazy, he should not be treated like this. Could it be that you all intend to abandon him until he dies? Elder Song said, Elder Shui has indeed contributed a lot. The sect has also taken good care of him. However, his situation is very special. Jiang Xiu did not accept such an explanation. How is it special? Elder Song said, Although Elder Shui has gone crazy, his cultivation is still there. Can sect head Jiang imagine an immortal king going crazy? That is equivalent to not recognizing one's own family. It is extremely dangerous. I hope that your honor can understand. Jiang Xiu said, Shui Wuyao was not able to hurt me when he was sober. Could it be that he can hurt me when he has gone crazy? This. Elder Song's expression was somewhat awkward. This reason might work for others. However, for Jiang Xiu, he was one of the few experts in the immortal martial realm. Shui Wuyao was someone who had lost to him. That's not what I meant. It's just that once a person goes crazy, their actions are unpredictable and they do not care about the consequences. Jiang Xiu knew that after Shui Wuyao went crazy, although he was crazy and acted strangely, it was because of his insanity that he lived in his own world. Originally, it was difficult for him to improve, but now, his sword Dao had improved by leaps and bounds. However, Elder Song did not mention a single word about this matter. This made Jiang Xiu feel strange. Jiang Xiu said, This venerable one will bear the consequences. Lead the way. After that, Jiang Xiu ignored Elder Song and walked right past him. He didn't even have the chance to respond. Zhang Luoxia had always been overbearing. Sect Master Jiang, please wait. Elder Song hurriedly said, Sect Master Jiang, please don't make things difficult for me. This is the sect's decree, I can't go against it, Jiang Xiu said. My meeting with Shui Wuyao is a private matter. When friends meet, there is no need for your immortal world sect to approve. Ji Wuhua and Su Ying followed closely behind. Stop! Elder Song angrily rebuked. Sect Master Jiang, as the saying goes, the guest should follow the host's wishes. Moreover, this is a decision made by our sect. Sect Master Jiang, you're too disrespectful to our Immortal Tribulation sect by barging in rashly. Jiang Xiu had no intention of stopping. Does Sect Master Jiang really want to barge into our Immortal Tribulation sect? As he spoke, he was already dozens of meters behind Jiang Xiu. He soared into the air and landed a dozen meters in front of Jiang Xiu, leaving behind an afterimage. At the same time, the disciples in the main hall responded and came out. They were all dressed in pure white robes and had long swords on their backs. Their expressions were cold, as if they were facing a great enemy. Jiang Xiu had no intention of stopping. When his feet landed on the ground, the dust on the ground seemed to have been crushed by a hurricane, revealing the bright and clean tiles. As his energy surged, the white clouds in the sky also drifted. In an instant, his aura rose abruptly, and a cold glint appeared in his eyes. You want to stop me? His feet didn't slow down at all. Elder Song's face darkened. If your venerable one dares to take another step forward, don't blame this elder for being impolite. Humph. Jiang Xiu let out a cold snort. No one could stop him from seeing the mist shake. His body moved slightly and he just shook his shoulders gently. The airflow on his body was like countless small snakes covering his body. After the green silk-like airflow swept across, they all rushed to the opposite side. Each green silk-like airflow gradually formed a vortex. They all gathered toward the opposite side. Looking at the dense vortexes shooting toward him like rotating missiles, Elder Song spat out a word. Immediately, a vast soft light appeared on the surface of his body. After a sudden blur, it turned into a green and white flame that wanted to burn the airflow on the spot. Everyone knew that Zhang Luoxia was known for his sword skills. How much could his attainments in magic arts be? At the same time, Elder Song's hand pointed forward. Qi! The billowing green and white flame instantly boiled and rushed straight toward Jiang Xiu. Green Spirit White Flame. This was one of the few secret techniques of the Immortal Tribulation sect, and its cultivation required a unique phenomenon. Its power was 10% higher than the heavenly fire at the Great Perfection stage. Jiang Xiu's expression didn't change at all, and his feet didn't stop at all. He went forward against the flames. You're courting death. Elder Song's eyes turned cold. However, the same scene happened again. The vortexes of airflow were like black holes in the universe. When they came into contact with the flames, they actually swallowed all the flames. No matter how fierce the flames were, they were all sucked clean. Seeing this scene, Elder Song's face was filled with shock. The green spirit white flame was an extremely powerful cold flame. In the current world, it could be said to be a top-notch existence. Its lethality was extremely strong and its area of effect was large. Not many immortal kings could withstand it, but Jiang Xiu was actually so relaxed. How could this be? He couldn't even tell what kind of immortal qi Jiang Xiu had. In the blink of an eye, Jiang Xiu had already walked to his side. Before brushing past his shoulder, he said indifferently, "Do you think you can stop me?" Elder Song's eyes suddenly bulged, and a strong anger surged in his heart. However, his eyes slowly calmed down. He had to admit that Zhang Luoxia was indeed stronger than him. Back then, Shui Wuyao was completely crushed by him. Although he didn't fight with Zhang Luoxia, it was obvious that Shui Wuyao's strength was comparable to his. However, he couldn't suppress the anger in his heart. How dare he barge into the Immortal Tribulation sect? He was simply too presumptuous, even if he was the sect master of Qianqing School. However, in the next moment, before he could unleash another technique, those spiraling black threads frantically flickered. Bringing with them a gust of wind, they pushed him to the side and forcibly pushed him to the side. If he let Zhang Luoxia pass through in this way and barge into the Immortal Tribulation sect, where would he put his face? Where would the Immortal Tribulation sect's face go? Freeze. Elder Song stomped down with one foot. All the disciples' faces became very solemn. They also knew that the fight between the two sides at this moment was related to the sect's face. They couldn't afford to be careless. As he stomped down with force, the purple spirit inscriptions on his body flashed crazily. He stomped again with one foot, and the force of a gust of wind suddenly surged out of the void under his feet, squeezing toward Zhang Xiu. He was about to freeze himself to the ground. Elder Song also knew how powerful Zhang Xiu was. However, there was no lack of people in the world who thought too highly of themselves. Although he knew that Zhang Xiu was powerful, he didn't think that he was worse than Zhang Xiu. Zhang Luoxia, you're too presumptuous. The Immortal Tao sect is not a place for you to behave atrociously. Bang! When Elder Song's force squeezed over, he was repelled by an even more violent force. This force was so strong that he couldn't react at all. His whole body was sent flying. In an instant, he crossed a distance of hundreds of feet. He used all his strength to stabilize his body. After landing, he took more than 10 steps back and almost fell to the ground. He looked very miserable. His face was completely pale. It wasn't because he was injured, but because he was crushed by Zhang Xiu. He couldn't take it anymore. The Immortal Tribulation sect was even more embarrassed. The disciples at the side exclaimed in their hearts when they saw this. Zhang Xiu had already stepped into the main hall of the sect, but he stopped in his tracks. He looked back and said indifferently, "What now?" This look was so arrogant, as if he didn't care about anything. The aura of a king was completely revealed. Elder Song's face was ashen. At this moment, he understood that with his cultivation, he couldn't stop Zhang Luoxia no matter what. He could only watch as Zhang Luoxia left step by step and disappeared into the depths of the main hall. Inform Elder Yu that something has happened. Chapter 732. After passing through the main hall, one could see the majestic mountain range of the Immortal Tribulation sect. White clouds drifted, mountains stood tall, waterfalls flowed, trees towered into the sky, birds and beasts flew in the sky, and deer ran on the ground. The 4 words "Immortal World" were vividly displayed. Within a valley, birds and beasts rarely came here. It was remote and quiet, and the world here was bleak. The ground was covered with fallen leaves, and when one stepped on them, it would make a rustling sound. The moment Zhang Xiu stepped foot in this place, Elder Song hurried over with his disciples. Even though he had lost all face and was infuriated to the core, he still had to follow along. He could not allow Zhang Luoxia to wreak havoc within the sect. Grandmaster Zhang, it's just up ahead. How about this? Elder Shui is not in a clear state of mind right now. It's really dangerous. You should go in alone. Elder Song explained, when Elder Shui goes crazy, he won't recognize his own family and will kill people. Letting you see Elder Shui is already the biggest concession I can make. Sect Master Zhang, don't make it difficult for me. Zhang Xiu stopped and looked back. In his heart, he was wondering why Elder Song kept stopping him from seeing Shui Wuyao. For the Immortal Tribulation sect, if Shui Wuyao could be cured, they would have an immortal king. No matter which sect, an immortal king was very precious. Although Zhang Xiu was very strong now, and stood out among the immortal kings, he also hoped that the sect could have a few immortal kings. However, this Elder Song kept stopping him. Difficult? Zhang Xiu's eyes were cold. Ji Wuhua is the immortal doctor that Su Ying invited for her father. What right do you have to stop them from seeing each other? What right do you have to stop immortal Dr. Ji from treating Shui Wuyao? Elder Song, you are very strange. Elder Song's expression couldn't help but change. He squeezed out a smile and said, "It's not that I want to make it difficult for Sect Master Zhang. It's just that there's no other way. This is the sect's order, and we have to follow it." The sect's order? Who gave the order? Is it Sect Master Hua? Zhang Xiu's words were targeted, not allowing him to quibble. Elder Song's expression was very ugly. It's not convenient to say. Jiang Xiu said, "Is it inconvenient to say, or is it impossible to say?" Elder Song frowned. At this moment, Jiang Xiu already had great doubts about him. He sighed and said, "Sect Master Jiang, you should know that there are 6 forbidden areas in our immortal tribulation sect." It was an order from the master of one of the forbidden areas. Lord of the Forbidden Lands? Jiang Xiu was slightly surprised. In many ancient sects, the master of a forbidden area had a higher status than the sect master to a certain extent. The inheritance of the master of a forbidden area was very ancient and was passed down from the same origin. Moreover, these people would never show their faces and would only guard the forbidden area. When they spoke to the sect master about something, the sect master would never refuse. However, if the master of the forbidden grounds really gave the order, why would he give such an order? No matter who it is, it has nothing to do with me. So what if it's the master of a forbidden area? Jiang Xiu stepped on the fallen leaves and walked forward. Elder Song shouted, "Sect Master Jiang, this is the Barren Ridge, one of the 6 forbidden areas of our sect. The 4 seasons here are different from the outside world. It seems to be 2 seasons faster." Didn't Sect Master Jiang notice the abnormality? Indeed, it was now between spring and summer. However, the valley was full of fallen leaves and the trees were bleak. The autumn chill in the wind was very strong. However, Jiang Xiu's footsteps still didn't stop. Humph! Elder Song snorted coldly and the corner of his mouth raised into a smile. A disciple came from behind and said softly beside him, "We've already transferred him in." Elder Song's face darkened. Elder Yu's plan is brilliant. Let's see how this Zhang Luoxia dares to be so rampant. Not to mention that the master of the forbidden area won't spare him, the sect will punish him for trespassing into the forbidden area of the sect. After Jiang Xiu entered, Ji Wuhua saw Elder Song and a group of disciples standing outside. She said in surprise, "Why aren't they following in?" Su Ying explained, "This is a forbidden area. Without the sect master's order and then through the master of the forbidden area, they are not allowed to enter the forbidden area. Those who disobey will be punished with death." Speaking of this, Su Ying's expression became a bit strange. She was also a disciple of the Immortal Tribulation sect. After entering the forbidden area, she didn't know what would happen, but she didn't hesitate at all. She had been in seclusion for 60 years for her father. Because it was a forbidden area, there were no signs of human habitation. Everywhere was strange and it was terrifyingly quiet. There was no sound at all. This silence was enough to make people feel afraid and scared. They walked all the way until they reached the depths. Goo goo goo. A strange sound came from an unknown place. It sounded like the cry of some kind of animal, but if one listened carefully, it sounded like the cry of some kind of underground insect. Rustle, rustle, rustle. The wind blew the fallen leaves. Occasionally, there would be some that flew in front of Jiang Xiu. Before they could fly in front of him, they were crushed into powder by his power. In the depths of the forbidden area, there seemed to be something moving in the grass under a big tree. It wanted to come out, beating like a heart. Suddenly, the fallen leaves on the ground were pushed aside and a person sat up. His hair was disheveled and his eyes were dull with a bit of childishness. He looked around curiously as if he didn't understand why he would appear here. Someone who would bury themselves in the fallen leaves should be a child, but he had a face that seemed to have gone through the vicissitudes of life. Although one couldn't tell his exact age, he was definitely not young. He didn't say anything and rolled a few times on the ground before climbing up. Shui Wuyao. Father. Shui Wuyao's face revealed an exaggerated expression of horror. He pulled up his pants and ran with all his might, as if a child had met a bad person. However, after running a few steps, he turned back. It turned out that his shoes had fallen. He picked them up and shook them in apology to Jiang Xiu and the others, indicating that he didn't do it on purpose. Then, he ran away. Seeing such a crazy Shui Wuyao, Su Ying's eyes immediately turned red. She wanted to chase after him, but she was pulled back by Jiang Xiu. However, she couldn't help but burst into tears. "Father," Jiang Xiu said, "it's fine as long as you're sure he's alive." At that time, Jiang Xiu was really afraid that something had happened to him. With immortal Dr. Ji here, it shouldn't be a problem to cure him. "You don't have to be too sad." Su Ying held Ji Wuhua's hand and said, "Immortal Dr. Ji, you must cure my father. You must. He shouldn't have to endure such a fate. He's an immortal king, a supreme immortal king." Jiang Xiu's eyes also flashed with a trace of sadness. Others didn't know, but Jiang Xiu knew in his heart why Shui Wuyao went crazy. To be honest, he was implicated by Jiang Xiu. All the schemes were aimed at Jiang Xiu. Shui Wuyao was just unjustly implicated. Regarding this, Jiang Xiu also felt a bit guilty. Don't worry, his situation isn't too bad. It seems that his mental illness is only secondary. The main reason should be that his brain is in a mess. As long as we can successfully break through his mental defenses and receive my treatment, he should be able to recover his mind in half a year. Hearing this, Su Ying and Jiang Xiu both let out a sigh of relief. With a so sound, Jiang Xiu took a step forward. His figure flashed and he quickly caught up to Shui Wuyao. Perhaps because he felt the fluctuation of Fa Li behind him, Shui Wuyao's expression suddenly changed. His body suddenly flashed forward. He didn't lose any of his cultivation. At the same time, he instantly released a sword art. Jiang Xiu didn't expect that he would suddenly attack. He was really caught off guard. The sharpness of that sword light was simply unprecedented. It seemed to carry the power of tribulation. It was actually sword tribulation. His hands immediately formed a seal. When the sword light pierced through his protective barrier and went straight for his head, his hands suddenly pressed inward. A powerful force firmly suppressed the sword art. It wasn't difficult for it to advance. The strong light suddenly burst out without end. "What a powerful sword!" Ji Wuhua exclaimed. "Another amazing genius." Even though she had seen Jiang Xiu's attack, she still felt amazed when she saw Shui Wuyao's sword. "Father, quickly stop. He is Jiang Luoxia. He is your friend." Shui Wuyao's face was heavy and stern. It was as if he didn't hear Su Ying's words. At this moment, there was only one thought in his mind, and that was to break through Jiang Xiu's defense. Chapter 733. There was only a fine line between a lunatic and a genius. After a person went crazy, he would no longer have any distracting thoughts. When he could focus on something, the power he could unleash was terrifying. Sword Calamity, a power that almost didn't exist, had actually been comprehended by him. The corner of Jiang Xiu's mouth twitched. Sword Calamity was the most discussed topic among sword cultivators because it was the final step of condensing a sword soul, transcending the calamity and forming a soul. In other words, Shui Wuyao's soul was in the process of mutation, or rather, the birth of a sword soul. Once it was completed, he would have one more sword soul than the average person. It was hard to imagine how strong his cultivation would be at that time. Everyone believed that Jiang Luoxia was the only one who could give birth to a sword soul and complete a soul mutation. He was the only one who was talented enough to be on par with the people who had given birth to a sword soul in the ancient records. But who would have thought that it would be Shui Wuyao in the end? Moreover, it was a crazy Shui Wuyao who had reached this step. Chi. Under the suppression of Jiang Xiu's power, the sword technique continued to erupt with a powerful sword calamity power. The two forces intertwined, causing the surrounding air to tremble slightly and emit a slight buzzing sound. The sword had already gathered. Although the momentum wasn't great, it was unusually sharp. "It's really sharp." Jiang Xiu's eyes suddenly burst with a strong light, and the power in his hand suddenly increased. The power of the sword calamity also exploded. The whole time and space seemed to stop, and all the spiritual fluctuations seemed to stop. The branches in the distance, and the falling leaves, all stopped. At this moment, only one thing was moving, and that was Shui Wuyao's sword. The light in his hand was pulled away from Jiang Xiu's suppression. Then, the sword light was like a dragon swimming in the night. It seemed to have transcended all physical limitations and stabbed towards Jiang Xiu again. The sword light flashed and pierced through everything. Pooh! With a piercing sound, the sharp white sword light pierced through Jiang Xiu's head. It was too fast and too sharp. It seemed to have transcended everything. Sect Master Jiang! Sect Master Jiang! The sudden scene scared the two women silly on the spot. Jiang Xiu was killed? The two women's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. They wailed in their hearts, and their minds went blank. How could such an accident happen? Although they knew that Shui Wuyao was very strong, Jiang Xiu should be even stronger. Jiang Luoxia, who single-handedly destroyed an entire sect, would die in the hands of his good friend. This was too ironic, too ironic. Father, he is Jiang Luoxia. Jiang Luoxia, your friend. Stop it. An immortal king's sword of calamity was said to be a sword that could destroy everything. Although Shui Wuyao was still very far from the true sword of calamity, he had already touched the threshold. He only needed to wait for his soul to mutate. That would be a great path to the heavens. Unfortunately, Shui Wuyao had gone crazy, completely crazy. No. The two women screamed. They clearly saw the sword light shoot out from the back of Jiang Xiu's head. It went from the forehead to the back of his head, pierced through. No matter how strong Jiang Xiu was, no one could survive after having their head pierced through by a sword technique. Even if it was one of the three most outstanding immortal doctors in the immortal martial continent, they would still be helpless when facing such a heavy injury. For a sword strike that could pierce through an immortal king, there was most probably not a single part of his brain that was intact. What was intact was only the surface. However, the next scene was so strange. After the sword attack, Jiang Xiu was still standing there. Moreover, there was no wound on his forehead or the back of his head, nor was there any blood. That sword attack just now was like a special effect. The power is indeed great. Jiang Xiu actually opened his mouth and spat out such a sentence. He's fine? The two women were stunned. Although they were ecstatic in their hearts, they were also full of doubts. Just now, they had clearly seen Jiang Xiu's head being pierced through by the sword tribulation. Why was he fine? Shui Wuyao tilted her head, her eyes wide open. She was like a curious child who was puzzled and couldn't understand. She sniffled and burst into tears. Umph! Jiang Xiu swung his long sleeves, and a thunderous explosion sounded. The water mist was shaken and sent flying. It was accompanied by a rumbling sound along the way. The momentum was extremely shocking. Ah! Shui Wuyao fell heavily on the ground. She hugged her head and screamed, I don't dare, I don't dare. As Jiang Xiu looked at Shui Wuyao who had become like this, he restrained the evil aura in his eyes. In the end, he had gone crazy and didn't really want to kill her. But just now, if it weren't for Jiang Xiu using the world laws to weaken the strength of his sword tribulation and also creating the illusion of space, causing him to stab into the phantom, then if it were an ordinary person, they would have already died to his hands. Jiang Xiu saw that Shui Wuyao's clothes were tattered, and his wrists were covered with scars. It was a shocking sight. If Jiang Xiu did not guess wrong, then these were the scars left behind by being shackled for a long time. There were even scorch marks on the surface. These shackles must contain the power of lightning. Jiang Xiu could understand why Shui Wuyao was locked up. Such a crazy immortal king was indeed very dangerous and had to be guarded. However, there was no need to add thunder and lightning to the chains. This was torture. This thing was used to deal with enemies and punish criminals. Don't shock me, don't. I was wrong. Woo-woo. Shui Wuyao hugged his head and cried loudly. Shui Wuyao. Jiang Xiu's eyes flashed with a trace of pain. He tore apart Shui Wuyao's clothes. His chest was full of all kinds of scars. They were charred black, from blades to whips. His face became more and more unsightly. In the end, He was so angry that his whole body trembled. "What did they do to you?" Suing also ran over. Seeing Shui Wuyao being abused like this, she cried again. From the various scars on his body, she could tell that Shui Wuyao had been treated inhumanely for the past 60 years. He was abused beyond recognition. Ji Wuhua held a golden needle in her hand and pierced it towards Shui Wuyao's head. Her technique was fast and steady. However, Shui Wuyao suddenly felt danger and used a sword technique. "Be careful!" Zhang Xiu shouted. She had seen the power of Shui Wuyao's sword technique. Ji Wuhua definitely couldn't block it and would die without a doubt. Ji Wuhua's beautiful face also turned pale. She didn't expect Shui Wuyao's reaction to be so intense. Asterisk whoosh. Asterisk Zhang Xiu's forehead flashed with a strong light. The inch light shot out and pierced through the void. The speed was also incredible. A flying knife and a sword technique both rushed towards Shui Wuyao. It depended on who was faster. In comparison, the inch light was faster. After all, the sword technique had time to condense, while the flying knife was Zhang Xiu's natal divine tool. It was already a knife. This was also the advantage of a natal divine tool to a certain extent. Asterisk ding. Asterisk the inch light, which was launched later, arrived first and collided with the sword chant. At this moment, time and space seemed to have come to a standstill once again. The sword chant bent and finally exploded, turning into countless fine quicksand. Although Ji Wuhua was frightened, the needle in her hand had already been pierced. She almost didn't look at it again. It was just a kind of reaction. "It hurts." After Shui Wuyao said this sentence, his eyes rolled back and fell to the ground. Phew! Ji Wuhua let out a long breath. She was scared out of her wits. If Zhang Xiu's reaction was a little slower, she would have lost her life. The crazy immortal king really couldn't be treated like an ordinary patient. Suing also broke out in a cold sweat. After taking a few deep breaths, she asked, "How is my father?" Ji Wuhua said, "He's temporarily unconscious. If there's no accident, the veins in his brain are completely messed up. He needs to be slowly recuperated." Zhang Xiu fell into deep thought. When the procuress mentioned to him that Shui Wuyao's sword technique had improved rapidly, he didn't think much of it. He didn't expect it to progress to this extent. If it wasn't for Zhang Luoxia's opportunity, he would have been surpassed by Shui Wuyao. Sword tribulation. Once upon a time, he was obsessed with it and dreamed of taking this step. However, later on, he found that his compatibility with the sword Dao was not 100%. The possibility of comprehending sword tribulation did not exist. Now that he had changed to a knife, Zhang Xiu had a feeling that his compatibility with the knife was better than the sword. If he continued to cultivate the knife Dao, he still had a chance to comprehend the knife tribulation, give birth to a knife soul, and trigger a soul mutation. Chapter 734. However, what made Zhang Xiu feel complicated was that ever since the last time he faced a soul attack and used the minor fate technique to protect himself, he had lost his soul. This could seriously affect Zhang Xiu's comprehension of the saber calamity and the birth of a saber soul. This was because all of this was based on one's soul. It was like a person. If they were no longer around, then they wouldn't be able to do anything. However, Zhang Xiu didn't feel any regret or disappointment. Without a soul, he couldn't use soul attacks, but at the same time, other people's soul attacks were also ineffective against him. Moreover, the Great God Sealing technique was ranked 9th among the 3,000 Great Dao. Once it was cultivated, how could it be worse than a soul mutation? Sword cultivators would probably be ranked outside of the top 1,000 in the 3,000 Great Dao. Even if they weren't, they would definitely be ranked outside of the top 100. Therefore, Zhang Xiu couldn't help but sigh. He couldn't envy Shui Wuyao's sword calamity. He was the one who was envied. Should we control him before treating him? Zhang Xiu saw Shui Wuyao faint after being hit by a needle and asked. Shui Wuyao didn't recognize anyone and it was too dangerous for Ji Wuhua to treat him. If Zhang Xiu wasn't by his side and he used another sword art, Ji Wuhua would undoubtedly die. Ji Wuhua said, Elder Shui's cultivation is extremely high. It's especially difficult to suppress him with his sword Dao. She had no other choice. The only thing she could do now was to have Jiang Xiu stay by her side and protect her every time she wanted to treat him. Jiang Xiu was never someone who waited on others, but this time, the situation was special. He could only cooperate. On a distant mountain, Elder Song accompanied a man in golden brocade clothes as they stood on the peak. Their gazes were focused on the forbidden area. Not only were the people in the forbidden area unable to enter, it was also difficult for their gazes to peek inside. They could only vaguely see some things. There doesn't seem to be any movement inside. Elder Song said after a long time. How did Elder Yu move Shui Wuyao inside? Elder Yu said, he was so scared that he jumped in himself. He pointed at a mountain peak in the distance. It's there. That seat just happened to be the big tree where the mist was swaying. He first hung on it, then fell heavily to the ground. Of course, the immortal king's body would not be injured in the slightest, but when he landed, he buried himself in the ground out of fear. Will there be an accident? Elder, you didn't dare to enter the forbidden area rashly. Not to mention that she was only an elder, even the sect master couldn't enter the forbidden area. There were certain conditions to enter the forbidden area. Anyone who violated the rules would be punished, even if it was an elder. In front of the sect's hundreds of thousands of years of inheritance, a mere elder was nothing. Even a sect master was nothing. Of course, they didn't dare to enter. Why hasn't he appeared yet? Elder Yu said, the master of the Barren Ridge's forbidden area will definitely not allow an outsider to enter. There is no need to doubt this point. Zhang Luoxia is difficult for us to deal with, but the master of the forbidden area is easy to deal with. Elder Song asked, what level has the master of the forbidden area reached? He had a deep understanding of Jiang Xiu's strength. He even felt that Jiang Xiu was in a realm above the immortal king realm. Elder Yu's clothes fluttered as he took a step forward with his hands behind his back. Everyone knows that there is an immortal emperor above the immortal king realm, but in reality, no one knows what kind of realm an immortal emperor is and what kind of path it takes. Many large sects, including the Chenqing school, definitely don't know. Other than the founder of the sect hundreds of thousands of years ago, there is no one else. This means that they have been lost. The Chenqing school prides itself on being a large sect, but how can it be compared to our immortal tribulation sect? Our sect's 6 great forbidden areas each has an emperor-level inheritance. When Elder Song and the disciples behind him heard such a secret, they were all shocked. Elder Song said involuntarily, doesn't that mean that the masters of the 6 great forbidden areas can become immortal emperors? Elder Yu nodded heavily. No wonder. Elder Song finally understood why the masters of the forbidden areas had such a high status in the sect. Although they never showed up, they were vaguely above everyone, including the sect master. Although the masters of the forbidden areas have not reached the emperor level, they are definitely not comparable to the immortal king realm. They are existences in another realm. Against the sect master of the Chenqing school, who has lost the pursuit of the immortal emperor's inheritance, the result will definitely be a crushing defeat. The result of the emperor-level secret technique against the king level was self-evident. But how are we going to bring him out later? Elder Song asked. Elder Yu said, this is even simpler. As long as Jiang Xiu fights with the master of the forbidden area, we will use the excuse that there are intruders as an excuse to attack. Although this was a little risky, they couldn't blame him. There is a cave ahead. Let me complete the first acupuncture treatment on him and stabilize his emotions. Then we will bring him out of here, Ji Wuhua said. This place was gloomy and quiet, giving her a very bad feeling. Xiaoying, pick up some firewood. In the cave, a bonfire was lit. The temperature here was much colder than outside, and the light of the bonfire illuminated the cave. Shui Wu Yao was lying on a pile of stones quietly. Su Ying used a towel to wipe his face, which was dirtier than a child's, clean. At this moment, Su Ying became incomparably gentle and filial. What is this? Ji Wuhua placed a blue-silver grass 3 inches above Shui Wu Yao's head along with the soil. This grass emitted a sparkling and soft blue light, which was very magical. Silver soul grass. Ji Wuhua said, after he inhales the soul fragrance of this grass, his soul will have some connection with this silver soul grass. I can make his mind less tense and relax. At the same time, Ji Wuhua began to treat his injuries. The immortal doctor's methods were indeed very shocking. After all, she was an immortal king-level immortal doctor. Jiang Xiu also had a divine Tao light, but it was too elementary and couldn't be compared to an immortal doctor. Jiang Xiu thought that if he had chosen the green path, he might have also become a famous immortal doctor. However, Jiang Xiu's personality wasn't suitable to be a doctor. After receiving Ji Wuhua's treatment, the injuries on his body healed at a speed visible to the naked eye. The originally incomplete wounds even caved in and a large piece of flesh slowly filled up, quickly recovering to its original state. Seeing this, Su Ying was overjoyed and was extremely grateful to Ji Wuhua. Immortal Dr. Ji's medical skills are truly worthy of their reputation. Jiang Xiu also praised from the bottom of his heart. Many people's injuries weren't serious, but if they weren't treated for a long time, they would become serious. Shui Wu Yao's injuries had been around for decades, but they were instantly healed. This was indeed a good method. When Jiang Xiu treated Cheng Lingsu's father, he also needed to recover himself. Later on, he even showed signs of mental exhaustion. This is only a small path. Some external and internal injuries are still very easy to treat. The most troublesome thing is his mental illness. Ji Wuhua didn't look proud. In her eyes, this was a common occurrence. At the same time, Shui Wu Yao's body temperature began to rapidly increase. His muscles began to fill up and his skin slowly turned red like blood. Terrifying black blood vessels began to bulge, looking very terrifying. Ji Wuhua's expression changed. Immortal Dr. Ji, what's going on? Almost at the same time, the silver soul grass suddenly dimmed as if it had lost its vitality. It quickly withered and became a withered grass. Jiang Xiu finally understood why they didn't let Jiang Xiu see Shui Wu Yao, let alone allow Jiang Xiu to treat Shui Wu Yao's injuries. They actually gave Shui Wu Yao a medicine that could injure the silver soul grass and instantly kill it. It should be the soul-altering powder. If someone wanted Shui Wu Yao's soul, then they should know that Shui Wu Yao had comprehended a sword art and was undergoing a soul mutation. They wanted his sword soul. Jiang Xiu angrily cursed, "Bastards!" Shui Wu Yao frowned and revealed a very painful expression. Moreover, the situation was somewhat out of control and became unstable. Fine sweat overflowed from his forehead and black blood vessels began to appear on his face. How could this be? Su Ying was extremely nervous. At this moment, a sparkling and translucent bubble spun in the sky outside, emitting a powerful light. A person could faintly be seen inside. It landed at the entrance of the cave. Chapter 735. The golden-robed elder's expression changed. The corner of his mouth raised into a smug smile. He's here. He's finally here. Lord of the Forbidden Grounds, you're too slow. You should have acted immediately. According to the time, Jiang Luoxia might have already released everything they did to Shui Wu Yao. But it doesn't matter. They'll die in the Forbidden Grounds eventually. The truth will never be exposed. Elder Song said, no matter how strong Jiang Luoxia is, he's only at the king realm. He won't be able to fight against a complete emperor realm cultivation method. The only problem now is to bring him out. Let's go down too. This elder wants the sword spirit. His eyes flashed with a strong desire. Terrifying silver light burst out from his eyes. With his cultivation base, it wasn't impossible for him to become an immortal emperor after obtaining the sword soul. Moreover, he didn't need to enter the Forbidden Grounds and be isolated from the world forever. His body leaped down the cliff like a fish in water. He passed through the misty clouds and strong wind and arrived at the Forbidden Grounds. This was a place where the disciples of the Immortal Tribulation sect didn't dare to enter. Those who trespassed would die. Elder Song and the other disciples behind him also jumped down. They were like little dots of light that glided past. In the end, all of them entered the forbidden grounds. This way, they began to chase inside. The thief who broke into the forbidden grounds has escaped inside. Zhang Xiu's eyes suddenly narrowed. He glanced at the entrance of the cave. In the next moment, a light ball appeared. There was a figure inside the light ball. "Who are you? How dare you break into the forbidden grounds of my Immortal Tribulation sect? Do you know that it's a crime punishable by death?" The other party's voice was very awkward. He spoke very slowly. He hadn't spoken for thousands of years. Naturally, it was difficult to speak. The hearts of the three present thumped. They realized who the person in front of them was. The Lord of the Forbidden Grounds of the Immortal Tribulation sect. Zhang Xiu could feel an incomparably powerful aura from his body. This was the first time Zhang Xiu had seen such a powerful aura. "Disciple, Su Ying." Su Ying braced herself and spoke. She thought that no matter what, she was still a disciple of the Immortal Tribulation sect. It was better than intruders like Zhang Xiu and Ji Wuhua. "You're a disciple of the Immortal Tribulation sect?" The other party was dressed in white. His eyes were cold and his expression was clean, as if he did not possess any emotions or desires. "Yes," he said, "since you're a disciple of the Immortal Calamity sect, you should know that this is a forbidden area. Anyone who trespasses here will be sentenced to death. Do you not know, or are you tired of living?" As soon as he finished speaking, a hint of killing intent condensed in the air. Bang! Suddenly, there was a loud explosion in the air. Zhang Xiu's eyes also turned cold. Two invisible killing intents collided in the cave. The invisible killing intents collided like tangible forces. The entire cave was filled with a bone-piercing chill. The other party didn't expect Zhang Xiu to be able to block his killing intent. Many people who were weak, when faced with a strong killing intent, would die with blood flowing out of their 7 orifices even though they didn't seem to have any wounds on the surface. Moreover, the symptoms of death were almost the same as the symptoms of being scared to death. Even he didn't expect that these killing intents could actually resist each other. However, it made sense. All powers were relative, and so were all feelings. As long as they were relative, they could suppress each other until one side won or cancelled each other out. "Who are you?" The Immortal Calamity sect was different from the Qianqing school. The Immortal Calamity sect started by helping immortals to pass through their tribulations. All of their inheritances couldn't be separated from the word immortal. It had nothing to do with gods. Since Zhang Xiu was a god cultivator, he naturally could tell at a glance that he wasn't a disciple of the Immortal Calamity sect. The Qianqing school's sect master, Zhang Luoxia, the person who hadn't left the forbidden area of the Immortal Calamity sect for thousands of years, obviously didn't know who Zhang Xiu was. However, he said, "You're the Qianqing school's sect master. Your cultivation isn't low. Why did you barge into my sect's forbidden area?" Zhang Xiu opened his mouth and said, "Shui Wuyao is an elder of your esteemed sect. He is also a friend of mine. He became crazy because of me. Naturally, I have the responsibility to treat him. Why would your honor order that no one will treat him?" The master of the forbidden area frowned and said, "When did I say that I couldn't treat his illness?" "No." Ji Wuhua and Su Ying's expressions changed. Zhang Xiu's eyes flashed. This matter wasn't difficult to guess. He originally thought that it was the master of the forbidden area who coveted Shui Wuyao's sword spirit, but now it seemed like it was Elder Song's group. They knew that they couldn't get rid of Zhang Luoxia, so they deliberately tricked them into the forbidden area. No matter what the reason was, as long as they broke into the forbidden area, it was a capital offense. They wanted to use the master of the forbidden area to get rid of Zhang Xiu and the others. Su Ying said, "Ancestor, the one lying down is this disciple's father. He's also an elder of the sect. His name is Shui Wuyao, but for some reason, he went crazy. The master of the forbidden area raised his hand and motioned for Su Ying to be silent. He then said, "I've never cared about anything outside. Not involved, not involved, not concerned." Only by doing this could one guard the forbidden area and become an immortal emperor. Whoever breaks into the forbidden area will be killed without mercy. Ancestor. Although Su Ying already knew, she still wanted the other party to understand. However, in front of the sect's hundreds of thousands of years of rules, a few lives were nothing. It was no different from a grain of sand in the desert. It was laughably insignificant. Could you expect the other party to despise the rules and sympathize with you? That would be too naive. Zhang Xiu said, "If you want to take our lives, then we'll have to see if you have the strength to do so." After speaking, he directly rushed out of the cave. If he made a move in the cave, it wouldn't be good if he hurt the two girls or agitated Shui Wuyao. The moment an expert made a move, one would know whether or not he was strong. Zhang Xiu's speed and strength surprised the master of the forbidden area. A light flashed on his body and he immediately chased after him. Zhang Xiu felt a powerful force rushing at him from behind. There was also a burning sensation that made him feel a slight pain. The other party's cultivation was indeed very high. Moreover, it was very strange. This should be the strength of an immortal emperor expert. Boom! The power in Zhang Xiu's body immediately exploded. The powerful force swept out like a hurricane. Wherever it passed, the fallen leaves on the ground were all swept up. Before they could fly into the sky, they were crushed into fine powder. The burning sensation on his back was suppressed by the surge of power, and the pain slowly subsided. One white and one red light, one in front and one behind, flew through the air like shooting stars in the valley. They instantly crossed a distance of several hundred meters and whistled forward. The distance between the two didn't shrink at all. Although Zhang Xiu didn't know the peak heavenly wind escape technique, it greatly increased his speed. Even if he didn't use any of the heavenly wind arts, his speed had already reached an astonishing level. Adding the heavenly fire sky art, his speed could be described as abnormal. In terms of the increase in speed, the first was undoubtedly wind, the second was lightning, and the third was fire. Therefore, Zhang Xiu's speed was extremely shocking. Don't even think about running away. The Lord of the Forbidden Area chased after Zhang Xiu for a long time. Seeing that its speed was almost the same as that of Zhang Xiu, it couldn't get any closer. The Lord of the Forbidden Area pinched a seal, and a sword light appeared out of thin air. Its speed was much faster than ordinary sword arts. Asterisk swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. Asterisk one beam of sword light after another shot towards Zhang Xiu. Zhang Xiu flashed left and right, dodging the attacks at just the right moment. However, the Forbidden Zone's Lord's sword techniques grew increasingly fast. The chase continued for the time it took to drink a cup of tea. The Lord of the Forbidden Area couldn't help but frown. His emotionless face became extremely gloomy. The dignified Lord of the Forbidden Area of the Immortal Tribulation sect couldn't even catch up with a junior sect master of the Tianqing school. If this news spread out, who knows how many people would laugh their heads off. Even the emperor-level cultivation method of the Immortal Tribulation sect would be looked down upon. A very mysterious character that contained the way of ancient charm appeared on his forehead, exuding a silver-white light. His hands suddenly blurred in front of him and kept forming various extremely complicated hand seals. At the same time, a low incantation came out of his mouth. There was a thunderclap. The Lord of the Forbidden Area's speed doubled as he flashed and quickly closed the distance between him and Zhang Xiu. So fast. Zhang Xiu was shocked in his heart. An ancient inheritance was indeed extraordinary. Quick, the aura is just in front. Hurry up. In the distant valley, Elder Yu, Elder Song, and the others were flying over. They had never set foot in this place, but this time, they didn't have time to see what it looked like. It's just in front. Chapter 736. At this moment, Jiang Xiu didn't need to look back to sense the owner of the forbidden land rushing over from behind. He roared, and the spiritual power on his body seemed to have a mind of its own. It rolled forward and was about to swallow Jiang Xiu and kill him in an instant. This kind of mystic technique was really rare. Jiang Xiu couldn't see through the changes in it for a while. Seeing that he was about to be sucked in, the blade in his hand flashed, and the sharp blade slashed at the spiritual power rolling toward him. The blade carried the aura of wind and fire, and it immediately cut open the spiritual power that was like a wall of wind. In the next moment, Jiang Xiu turned into a glaring flame and soared into the sky. His whole body was like a monstrous fire that swept across the sky, exuding a powerful king's aura. His long hair fluttered, and his clothes rustled. His killing intent was monstrous and terrifying. There was a loud rumble. A black shadow broke through the air and directly attacked Jiang Xiu. He looked back and didn't move his hands and feet, but the flames on his body surged wildly. Even if the opponent's mystic technique was unfathomable and the emperor-level technique was unparalleled, it was impossible for him to not defend himself. He quickly drew a talisman in his hand, and with a flash of white light, he threw it toward the flames in the sky. The flames suddenly sank into the rune in his palm, and all of them were sucked into his palm, disappearing without a trace. Only then did Jiang Xiu notice that there was a pile of fleshy wings on his back. His whole person was incomparably holy. As the wings flapped, the surrounding sky made a rumbling sound. The left wing contained the wind element Tao, and the right wing contained the thunder element Tao. Wind and thunder wings. It was no wonder that his speed was so astonishing. He had actually gathered the two fastest great Taos. Wind and thunder flashed, and with a flap of his wings, his entire body was pushed away. At this moment, his entire body was blurry, and only the talisman that appeared on his forehead could be seen shining. With a turn of his hand, an iron fork with thunder and lightning appeared in his hand. Thunder and lightning constantly condensed on his hands, condensing into bowl-sized golden lightning arcs and crazily injected them into the iron fork. The pitchfork flew out of his hand and suddenly expanded to the size of hundreds of feet in a roar. A thick electric arc flashed out of the pitchfork, turning into a terrifying dragon-like demon that rushed toward Jiang Xiu. Soul magic weapon. Jiang Xiu turned around and immediately formed a seal. The green light on his fingertip turned into a whistling gale. The gale was like a blade. When it flew out, it turned into a dozen hurricanes that were more than 100 feet in size. Then, the dozen hurricanes transformed into one and condensed with a tinkling sound. From the outside, it looked like a wind blade. Black wind blade. Then, Jiang Xiu waved his hand in the air and the wind blade slashed toward the flood dragon. "You're courting death." The other party spat out coldly. Soul magic weapons were rare in the world. There was no one in the whole Tianqing school. They were refined from the dragon's soul. This kind of secret technique had long been lost. The attack of the soul magic weapon not only had a powerful magic attack, but also a soul attack. Jiang Xiu only used magic to resist. He was courting death. The wind blade slashed toward the dragon fiercely. Countless cyan wind blades were ejected from it, raging extremely. There was a terrible roar. The pitchfork collided with the blade, and the flood dragon roared as it rushed past Jiang Xiu's body. However, Jiang Xiu did not move at all. Only the electric current on the pitchfork was still flashing wildly, and bowl-sized electric arcs scattered in all directions, crisscrossing and entangling with the cyan wind blades that filled the sky. How can he be fine? The soul attack could not be avoided, and there was no limit to the distance. He was 100% sure that Jiang Xiu was attacked. Logically speaking, he should not be able to withstand it. Even the Tianqing school's Tianqing mirror could not resist it. The magic should have lost control and collapsed. Why did it not weaken, but strengthen instead? He thought that Jiang Xiu would be killed by the soul attack, so he relaxed a little. The cyan wind blades killed him, and the lightning arcs thinned out. "You!" The face of the owner of the forbidden area changed greatly. He immediately hurriedly activated his hand gestures, but his momentum had dissipated. He had no advantage against Jiang Xiu. Now that he had lost his momentum, it was difficult to regain it. How? In the next moment, Jiang Xiu's green wind blades had already come crashing down from the sky. In the face of the perfect Tianqing wind magic and the powerful knife momentum, he was powerless to resist. The owner of the forbidden area immediately urged the magic power in his body to stabilize Guang Qiu, while he kept chanting. Boom! The knife radiance broke all the electric currents. The iron fork was strangled in the air and fell in pieces. In the fierce wind, the owner of the forbidden area could not hear a trace of movement, because the knife radiance was already in front of him. The sparkling and translucent knife radiance with a whirlwind slashed on the light ball. With a boom, the light ball collapsed and turned into countless fine light spots. For the first time in thousands of years, the light ball shattered. He felt the sky outside, the earth outside, and the wind outside. The owner of the forbidden area was very flustered. He suddenly changed his incantation, and the light spots in the sky swirled and gathered around him. He immediately stopped and flapped the light wings behind him. In a flash, he was hundreds of feet away from Jiang Xiu, and the knife radiance fiercely chopped at the place where he was just now. He was dodged. So fast. After the owner of the forbidden area looked uncertain, he suddenly gritted his teeth and flapped the wind and thunder wings. His body was pushed forward and rushed toward Jiang Xiu again. Jiang Xiu's knife momentum changed in an instant, with a cold light. Jiang Xiu flapped his wings of wind and thunder and changed his position once again. He saw Jiang Xiu brandishing his long saber in the void. The saber light kept flashing between the heaven and the earth. The saber light covered the heaven and the earth, crisscrossing with each other. After a few breaths, the owner of the forbidden area said, "You can't beat me." It was too fast. At the moment when the long knife radiance chopped down, he could flash away on the spur of the moment. In this case, he was already in an invincible position. Really? The owner of the forbidden area did not see that there were many knife radiance traces left in the sky. At first glance, there was no pattern, but if one looked carefully, these knife radiance vaguely formed a strange formation. Moreover, it seemed that Jiang Xiu's every knife radiance was casual, but in fact, he deliberately adjusted his position, and the strength and angle of each knife radiance were different. Unknowingly, the knife radiance traces in the sky became more and more obvious, and a certain pattern could be faintly seen. The knife formation had begun to take shape. However, at this moment, the crowd in the distance finally arrived. When they saw the owner of the forbidden area fighting with Jiang Xiu, Elder Yu immediately knelt on the ground and shouted, "I'm useless. I let the thief enter the forbidden area and disturb the owner's cultivation." Elder Song and the other disciples also hurriedly shouted, "I'm useless." With such an attitude, anyone would think that they had entered the forbidden area out of filial piety. This person is the suzerain of Tianqing School, Zhang Luoxia. His cultivation is extremely high. We were worried that the owner of the forbidden area would be in danger. Therefore, we rushed into the forbidden area without asking for permission from the suzerain. We hope that the owner of the forbidden area will forgive us. As soon as he finished speaking, Elder Yu immediately shouted angrily at Jiang Xiu, "Zhang Luoxia, you ignored our attempts to stop you and barged into the forbidden area of our suzerain sect. Do you know that this is a capital offense? Even if we join forces to kill you now, the Tianqing school won't be able to say anything." Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. From the fact that this person had openly violated the laws of the suzerain sect and barged into the forbidden area, it could be inferred that this person was plotting to get Xue Wuyao's sword soul. He first tricked them into the forbidden area and then used the owner of the forbidden area to kill them. According to their deduction, it should be reasonable to capture them. However, the problem was how to bring Xue Wuyao back. This required some risk. Therefore, if they barged into the forbidden area and joined forces with the owner of the forbidden area to kill him, everything would be logical. Humph. Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. What are you planning? You can hide it from others, but can you hide it from Zhang Luoxia? Let's go and lend the patriarch a hand, Elder Yu ordered. As he took the lead, the elders and disciples behind him immediately took out their flying swords. In an instant, the sound of swords filled the sky. This time, they didn't hold back at all. The sky was filled with dazzling sword lights as they charged forward fiercely. Roar! Zhang Xiu suddenly let out a terrifying roar. Suddenly, the sky changed color. The blade in his hand suddenly sped up. You want to kill me? You're still far from it. Chapter 737. Inside the Immortal Tribulation sect, a young girl was rushing to the main hall. She was about 16 or 17 years old. She was wearing a snow-white robe that exposed her slender waist. Her face was beautiful, and her eyes were exceptionally clear. When one looked into her eyes, one would feel a tranquility similar to a mountain spring flowing by. However, at this moment, there was a sense of urgency between her brows. Sect Master, it's not good. Someone broke into the forbidden area. It seems that Elder Yu and Elder Song have chased after them. What? The green-robed man behind the long table in the main hall stood up. He was about 30 years old. His expression changed drastically. Someone broke into the forbidden area, and the two elders chased after them. His eyes almost popped out of their sockets. Who broke into the hall? He hurriedly stood up and rushed outside. The young girl replied, I heard that it's the sect master of Qianqing School, Jiang Luoxia. Jiang Luoxia? Sect Master Hua's footsteps paused as he turned his head to look at the young girl. His eyes revealed a look of contemplation. Jiang Luoxia and Shui Wuyao were good friends. Shui Wuyao would always mention Jiang Luoxia. Why did Jiang Luoxia suddenly come to the Immortal Tribulation sect and break into the forbidden area? Where's Elder Shui? The young girl was stunned for a moment. Why was the sect master still asking about the crazy Elder Shui? Shouldn't he be worried about how to get the two elders off the hook? Breaking into the forbidden area was a capital offense. I'm not sure. Inside the forbidden area, Zhang Xiu's figure flashed in the void. The blade marks around him shone incessantly, almost forming a blade formation. As Zhang Xiu's blade light became faster and faster, the surrounding blade qi became denser and denser. The sky was somewhat dazzling. The master of the forbidden area felt that something was wrong because Zhang Xiu's blade was getting faster and faster. Moreover, it wasn't directed at him, nor was it to deal with the elders of the Immortal Realm sect who suddenly intervened. It was more like he was practicing his blade. It was too strange. Moreover, the blade marks in the sky seemed to be increasing. He originally thought that it was caused by Zhang Xiu's special blade technique that triggered the void. Now, it seemed more like it was deliberate. No. The master of the forbidden area, Elder Yu, Elder Song, and the others suddenly felt the sky become dark. The originally bright sky suddenly became dark, and they couldn't help but look up. In the sky, between the white clouds, a huge shadow appeared out of nowhere. The shadow cast down as if night had fallen. Although the shadow looked like a shadow, it could be seen that it was exactly the same as Zhang Xiu. Even the clothes, body shape, and movements were all the same. It was unclear whether it was Zhang Xiu's movement that caused the shadow to move, or the shadow's movement that caused Zhang Xiu to move. But as Zhang Xiu's saber slashed out, its power became stronger and stronger. It covered the sky and covered the earth. In the darkness, the light of the saber marks became even more dazzling. Then, layer after layer of restrictive light appeared, triggering the entire saber light formation. Raging Sea Saber. At this moment, the countless saber force that was emitted from the surroundings gathered crazily towards Zhang Xiu. A strong wind blew across the entire world, blowing away the flying swords that were shooting towards him. They couldn't even open their eyes. Heaven slash. A dazzling light burst out from Zhang Xiu's eyes. The heaven's questioning talisman on his body suddenly lit up. The long saber in his hand carried an indescribable terrifying power and slashed down. With a bang, a terrifying power that had never been seen before surged out from within. The entire saber light formation also exploded with a bang. The sky fell and the earth cracked. It was impossible to describe the explosive power at this moment with words. There was nothing else in the world but a vast expanse of silver saber light, followed by countless sabers. Boom, boom, boom. The sound of the explosion resounded throughout the entire valley. Rocks collapsed and the earth shook. Under such an attack, several mountains exploded on the spot. The saber intent also ravaged the earth, and the saber blades penetrated hundreds of feet deep into the ground. The sky was filled with saber whistles and mournful cries. Inside the saber formation, under the impact of the saber light and saber wind, the space also tumbled violently. No matter how fast the Lord of the Forbidden Area was, he was trapped in the saber formation and could do nothing. He was directly slashed out and was hit by dozens of saber lights in the air. He only managed to stabilize himself a few hundred feet away. His face was pale, and his body was covered with saber wounds. Although the wounds were not fatal, they were riddled with holes and blood was flowing. Even half of his hair was cut off. He was in a sorry state. The next moment, Jiang Xiu's figure rushed out and strangely appeared in front of the Lord of the Forbidden Area. Without saying anything, the long saber in his hand slashed out again. Suddenly, the saber light flashed. Puff! A smear of blood spurted out, and a huge wound opened up on his shoulder. A strong transparent light burst out from inside, and the green jade-like bones could be seen from the wound. His whole arm hung down. He hurriedly flapped the wind and thunder wings and flew away with his injured arm. Slowly, the saber light dissipated, and everything began to quiet down. As far as the eye could see, the disciples who came to help were basically all dead. They were cut into pieces and died without an intact corpse. Elder Yu and Elder Song's situation was slightly better. They were also covered with saber wounds. Elder Song's face was covered with crisscrossing wounds. Although they were small, they covered his entire face. He knelt on one knee on the ground. "Didn't you want to kill me?" Jiang Xiu's clothes fluttered in the wind. He walked over with white clouds in the sky and strong winds howling on the ground. "Come on." Elder Yu looked at Jiang Xiu in front of him. The expression on his face was as interesting as it could be. He would never have imagined that Zhang Luoxia was so powerful that even the Lord of the Forbidden Area was defeated by him. This was really shooting himself in the foot. The current situation was really f***ed up. Elder Song, how could this be? They were both immortal kings. How could Zhang Luoxia be so powerful? As far as the eye could see, everything within 100 miles was probably destroyed by the saber light. Was he still a mortal king? The Lord of the Forbidden Area flapped his wind and thunder wings in mid-air. His emotionless face was terrifyingly gloomy at this moment. Blood kept flowing down his left hand. He looked at Jiang Xiu with a shocked expression. This was not the power attribute of an emperor-level technique. It was a king-level power that was so powerful that it made one's hair stand on end. This should not be something that a celestial king's secret technique could achieve. This had already surpassed the king-level power. Then, he quickly figured out the reason. This was related to Jiang Xiu's divine body. It should be the talent of some kind of divine cultivator. After so many years and more than 10 generations of Forbidden Area lords, it's finally time to activate the power of the Forbidden Area. His expression was serious. The power of the Forbidden Area? Yes, Jiang Xiu just remembered that this was the Forbidden Area of the Immortal Tribulation sect. Since it was called the Forbidden Area, there must be a reason. Otherwise, he would not have stayed in this godforsaken place for so long. There must be a special reason. Forbidden Area Lord, kill this guy and avenge the dead disciples of our sect. Elder Song gnashed his teeth in hatred. Avenge? The corners of his mouth were twitching violently. Those who followed were all his disciples. There were more than 20 of them, and all of them had died. Yes. Forbidden Area Lord, please avenge them. Elder Yu chimed in. Jiang Xiu's eyes narrowed. How strong was the power of the Forbidden Area of the Immortal Tribulation sect, which had been passed down from hundreds of thousands of years ago? That was an era where immortal emperors existed. At this moment, he also raised his essence, qi, and spirit to the peak. Patriarch, Su Ying and Ji Wuhua rushed over from the rubble with Shui Wuyao. Patriarch, Sect Master Jiang only wanted to treat my father's illness. It was them who tricked us into entering the forbidden area. You don't have to use the power of the forbidden area for their schemes and selfish desires. Elder Song's expression changed greatly. Stinking girl, don't talk nonsense. Ji Wuhua said, is littling wrong? Shui Wuyao may have gone mad, but she comprehended the sword tribulation and her sword spirit is growing. You don't let me treat her because you're scheming for her sword spirit. Elder Yu and Elder Song's expression changed greatly. Nonsense. Forbidden Area Lord, don't listen to the nonsense of an outsider. They want to drive a wedge between us so that Zhang Luoxia can defeat us one by one. At this time, a large group of people arrived outside the forbidden area. It was Sect Master Hua. He wrote a voice transmission talisman and threw it into the forbidden area. The current Sect Master of the Immortal Realm Sect, Hua Yufeng, requests an audience with the Forbidden Area Lord. I hope that the Forbidden Area Lord will allow us to enter the forbidden area. Elder Yu and Elder Song's expression changed greatly. The Sect Master is here. The Forbidden Area Lord's gaze was fixed on Jiang Xiu from beginning to end. Chapter 738. Fearing that something might have happened to the two elders, Hua Yufeng hurriedly rushed in after passing the message. Although he saw corpses all over the ground, he heaved a sigh of relief when he saw that Elder Yu and Elder Song were fine. Although the Immortal Tribulation Sect was a big sect, they only had a dozen or so immortal kings. Shui Wuyao had already gone mad. If they lost 2 more immortal kings, they would have lost 3 in total. This would be a huge blow to the sect's strength. Then, he realized that the master of the forbidden area was also injured. His cheating ability was crippled. His bones and tendons were broken, and blood was flowing. His eyes were glaring at Zhang Xiu with anger. His eyes widened, and his heart was filled with shock. The forbidden area's master was injured? He suddenly looked at Zhang Xiu. The one who injured the forbidden area's master could only be Zhang Luoxia. This person's strength was so strong that even the forbidden area's master who used an emperor-grade cultivation technique was defeated by him. While he was shocked, Hua Yufeng was also furious. This person rashly barged into the forbidden area, killed so many of his disciples, and even injured the forbidden area's master. The Immortal Tribulation Sect's face was greatly damaged. Sect Master Jiang, you're too presumptuous. My Immortal Tribulation Sect has no enmity with you. Why did you come to my sect to cause trouble? Sect Master Hua rebuked angrily. No enmity? Zhang Xiu's eyes were extremely cold. Shao Ying. Su Ying supported Shui Wuyao and pulled his chest open. Although the wounds were slowly healing, the messy scars were still there, including his back. One could see that he was originally covered in wounds. This. Hua Yufeng's eyes revealed a strange expression. The scars on Shui Wuyao's body should have been caused by abuse. Although Shui Wuyao had gone mad, as an immortal king elder, Hua Yufeng had always asked the sect to take care of him. What's going on? Elder Yu and Elder Song were the ones who had entrusted him with this task. At this point, the two of them could sense that something was amiss. Elder Yu then replied, replying sect leader, although Elder Shui has gone mad, his cultivation level is still intact. The few disciples who took care of him have all died under his sword. In order to control him, the disciples might have locked him up. This explanation, Hua Yufeng could barely accept it. Sect Master Jiang, you're causing trouble in my Immortal Tribulation Sect because of this? Hua Yufeng was infuriated. Just because Shui Wuyao was your friend and suffered some abuse, he went crazy and was so dangerous. More importantly, Shui Wuyao was a member of the Immortal Tribulation Sect. Whether he was raised or killed, respected or humiliated, he was a member of the Immortal Tribulation Sect. What did it have to do with an outsider? Just because you are Shui Wuyao's friend, you want to forcefully intervene? This is too overbearing. Sect Master, What's the point of wasting words with him? This man is forcing me to become the sect master. He even entered the forbidden area and killed so many of my disciples. He even destroyed my immortal trail sacred ground. Killing him 100 times won't be enough. Elder Yu was incomparably furious. He wanted nothing more than to rush up and fight it out with Zhang Xiu. However, he didn't have the courage to do so. Zhang Xiu's strength was enough to kill him on the spot. That's right, sect master. Kill him. Elder Song echoed. Hua Yufeng said, Zhang Luoxia, you openly barged into my sect, trespassed into my forbidden area, and killed my disciple. Now that my sect wants to execute you, you can only blame yourself for bringing this upon yourself. Humph. Zhang Xiu coldly snorted. In the distant sky, many streaks of light once again shot over and landed in the forbidden area. Seeing this group of people rushing over, Elder Yu and Elder Song were completely at ease. A few more immortal kings had entered. With so many people entering, it would be difficult for the master of the forbidden area or the sect master to pursue the matter. Both of them revealed relaxed expressions. Elder Song softly whispered to Elder Yu, "This is good. We can't possibly execute so many elders at the same time." Elder Yu also revealed a meaningful expression and blinked his eyes. Once Zhang Luoxia died and brought people outside, all the trouble would be over. Su Ying cried out, "Sect Master, it wasn't that Sect Master Zhang wanted to barge in. It was Elder Yu and Elder Song who didn't allow me to see my father. They also didn't allow Immortal Dr. Ji to treat my father's illness." Elder Song said, "Nonsense. When did this elder say that?" Su Ying was furious. As an elder, he was actually so shameless. He had clearly said those words, but he was like a scoundrel in the marketplace, refusing to admit it. "You," Elder Song said, "don't think that you're special just because you're Shui Wuyao's adopted daughter. Do you know the crime of slandering a sect elder?" You. Su Ying was so angry that she couldn't speak. What a scoundrel elder. Ji Wuhua has learned something today. But it's no wonder. Once this matter is exposed, you won't have a place in the sect. After Ji Wuhua finished speaking, a blue light appeared in her hand. Another silver soul grass appeared above Shui Wuyao's head. "What are you doing?" Elder Song's expression changed. He rushed forward to stop her, but what he saw was a ray of blade light. He hurriedly retreated and saw the blade light cut into the ground. The fainted Shui Wuyao's expression twisted in pain. Black veins appeared on his face, crisscrossing and looking very frightening. "This is..." Sect Master Hua and the group of elders widened their eyes. Ji Wuhua said, "This is soul-altering powder. It's a type of soul-type medicine. Taking too much will cause the soul to leave the body." Although Elder Shui has gone crazy, he comprehended the sword tribulation and is currently nurturing his sword spirit. After saying this, everyone understood what she wanted to say. Everyone's expression changed. "What do you mean?" Hua Yufeng asked. Ji Wuhua said, "Someone wants to steal Elder Shui's sword spirit. If I cure his illness, then how can they get what they want? That's why they tried every possible way to stop us from treating Shui Wuyao. They didn't even hesitate to say that it was an order from the master of the forbidden area and even tricked us into entering the forbidden area." Hua Yufeng's face gradually turned cold. The muscles on his face fiercely twitched. "Elder Yu, Elder Song, is what Immortal Dr. Ji said true?" Elder Yu naturally denied it. "Sect Master, don't listen to the outside sowing discord. These are all fabricated facts to offend themselves." Ji Wuhua said, "Fabrications. Even if Sect Master Hua isn't an immortal doctor, you should know that the soul-altering powder symptoms are so obvious. It's not something that can be done in a day or two. It'll take at least 10 years or even decades. Is this something that I can fabricate?" Hua Yufeng's face was very gloomy. He was also an extremely intelligent person. When Ji Wuhua said this, he already knew what was going on. However, even though he was extremely angry, it was difficult for him to do anything. After all, These two were elders of the sect and had a lot of influence in the sect. Although it was true that stealing someone's sword spirit was an act of evil and evil bandits, he felt extremely ashamed in his heart. If it were any other disciple, they would be sentenced to death. However, these were two elders. Zhang Xiu had been watching from the sidelines. Put on. Suing knelt down. Sect Master, please redress the injustice of my father. My father was innocently persecuted by others. Heaven and earth cannot tolerate this. Please uphold justice. The group of elders behind Hua Yufeng also fell silent. This matter was difficult to handle. Hua Yufeng's eyes were uncertain. In Zhang Xiu's eyes, this matter was actually very simple. They were outsiders, so no matter what the reason was, they had to be killed. As for the two elders who committed the crime, it was an internal matter of the sect. As for how to deal with it, if he couldn't handle it himself, he would gather the elders for a discussion. Therefore, from the beginning, Zhang Xiu didn't consider this matter. This was because he didn't care about the Immortal Tribulation sect's attitude towards Shui Wuyao. He only wanted to save Shui Wuyao and cure her. As for the two dregs who dared to covet his sword spirit, he would let Shui Wuyao punish them herself after she woke up. No matter what, we have to take down Zhang Luoxia first. Hua Yufeng finally spoke. His eyes were filled with determination. Humph. Zhang Xiu said, "Don't regret it." His eyes were indifferent as he looked disdainfully at the scene. His words revealed an extremely strong confidence, as if nothing was a problem in his eyes. Elder Yu interrupted, "Sect Master, this person's cultivation is extremely high. We should ask the Forbidden Lord to activate the Forbidden Area's power." Seeing that the three of them had joined forces to face Zhang Xiu and were all seriously injured, they were naturally very afraid in their hearts. Hua Yufeng didn't want the elders of the sect to suffer any losses. It was a small matter if one of them died, but it was a big matter if the sect lost face. He turned to the Forbidden Lord and bowed, "I ask the Forbidden Lord to take action and take care of this thief." He had already made up his mind to teach Zhang Xiu a lesson. Therefore, he didn't even bother to be polite and directly called Zhang Xiu a thief. Chapter 739. Hearing Hua Yufeng's words, he nodded. Although he was the master of the Forbidden Area and had a high status, Hua Yufeng was still the sect master. Moreover, Hua Yufeng's strength was exactly what he wanted. He glanced at Zhang Xiu and said, "You are very strong. If you have an emperor-level cultivation method, you have a great chance of becoming a divine emperor. Unfortunately, there are some places that you can't enter and you can't enter." Zhang Xiu's eyes flashed. There was an emperor-level cultivation method hidden in the Forbidden Area. The power of the Forbidden Area should be able to help one become an immortal emperor. It was so powerful that it was difficult to estimate. Zhang Xiu had to be careful. However, he had come back from the brink of death many times. In the face of death, he had already cultivated himself to be unperturbed. Not only that, he was excited to see the power of an emperor. A trace of fierceness flashed across the Forbidden Lord's indifferent face. The blood flowing out of his left arm was originally bright red, but it slowly turned golden. The golden light was dazzling as it fell to the ground and flowed into the ground, deep into the ground. The golden blood was like a key to opening a seal. The ground under his feet seemed to be different. There was a strange power surging below. It was as if a power that had been sleeping for countless epochs was waking up. It was boundless and ancient. At the same time, 6 earthy yellow beads rushed out from the ground. The Forbidden Lord immediately formed a seal with his hands. Suddenly, earthy light flowed around his body. A phantom of a Dharma idol that was thousands of feet tall appeared. It was the same size as Zhang Xiu's shadow. However, the phantom was not the same as the Forbidden Lord's. It had a pair of wings on its back, a pair of horns on its head, and a pair of blood-red eyes. If one called it a demon, it was a demon. If one called it an ancient god, it looked like an ancient god. However, it was just a phantom. But that was enough. The vast power filled the whole area. It made people feel like they had returned to ancient times. At that time, the sky was even lonelier and the gods and demons were even more powerful. The Forbidden Lord looked at Zhang Xiu with contempt in his eyes. He softly chanted an incantation, and the surrounding wind surged as if it could not withstand his incantation. Within the yellow light, there were countless yellow particles. In the blink of an eye, an area of several million feet with him at the center had turned into a world of earth. Domain of heaven. Everyone present was shocked. Zhang Xiu's face flashed with a strange expression. He heard that the demon could move. It opened its eyes, as if it had completely awakened. Waves of earthy yellow light swept out, and with a flash, it emitted a dazzling golden light that rushed towards Zhang Xiu's shadow. It was strange that it did not attack Zhang Xiu. Instead, it attacked Zhang Xiu's shadow. It was just a shadow. Was it stupid to attack a shadow? But in the next moment, Zhang Xiu felt a vast power crushing over him. He couldn't stand still, and his whole body was blown away. He was shocked, and when he looked up, he saw that his own shadow was also blown away. The shadow could withstand the power. This, Zhang Xiu was greatly puzzled. He immediately realized that this umbra might be the umbra, but it was inextricably linked to him. Since it could transmit power to him, once it was able to withstand the power, it would also transmit it to him. However, this strange monster created by the power of the Forbidden Lord could attack the shadow. Emperor-level secret technique, Sky Illusion. Hua Yufeng exclaimed softly. This is the Emperor-level secret technique of the immortal martial strategy, Sky Illusion? Zhang Xiu was shocked. He had encountered a tough opponent. Moreover, its power was at the level of great accomplishment. Under Sky Illusion, all spells would lose their direction. Anyone who faced such a secret technique would be at a great disadvantage. How terrifying! Zhang Xiu began to counterattack. His power surged out. His hands formed seals quickly. Mountains of tens of thousands of feet floated down from the sky. His fingers moved quickly. Some of the mountains exploded in the sky, but some were ineffective. He. The demon-like monster even let out a terrifying sneer. It did not hide its mockery of the shadow behind Zhang Xiu. Its hands formed seals, and its fingers moved like wheels on its chest. The people below saw in the sky two giants tens of thousands of feet tall facing each other. They fought back and forth, and the momentum was extremely shocking. They were like ancient mortals looking up at the gods. The people below the stage exclaimed, "Good." Zhang Xiu was completely at a disadvantage. The battle between the two sides had evolved into a close combat. Zhang Xiu was often sent flying. This made Zhang Xiu very angry. In fact, he was not very familiar with his third innate skill. He only had a rough understanding of it. Moreover, he was still in the growth stage and had not fully matured yet. In terms of power, he was definitely at a disadvantage. A strong light flashed on his forehead. Seeing that the opponent was about to attack, the shadow's closed eyes slowly opened. It had awakened. Finally, under the stimulation of the opponent, Zhang Xiu realized the problem. The shadow's awakening took effect. As if it was the first time it had appeared, it opened its eyes and took a good look at the world. At the same time, a long saber condensed in his hand. This was the first time he let the shadow wield a saber. Rip! The saber slashed out, and a silvery white light swept across the sky. At the same time, the opponent threw a punch. With a loud clang, the two forces shook violently. The force that was released instantly spread hundreds of miles away. The people who were not far away felt a destructive pressure. Many people vomited blood on the spot. Su Ying was one of them. As for Ji Wuhua, she was an immortal king after all, so she was able to withstand it. The Forbidden Master in the distance kept chanting incantations. Golden blood flowed down continuously, flowing into the depths of the ground. As for Zhang Xiu, he had to deal with the opponent directly. One person was chanting incantations while the other was swinging his saber in the void. This, Hua Yufeng and the other elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect were dumbfounded. They were shocked by the strength of the Forbidden Land, and even more shocked by Zhang Luoxia's ability to resist the 5th rank of the immortal martial book, Heavenly Fantasy. Everyone's eyes were suddenly covered by a silvery white light. Then, the light in front of them became incomparably intense, and they couldn't open their eyes. After a breath, they saw the saber light shining in the sky. As the shadow with the saber pounced forward, the saber crossed thousands of miles in the sky. At this moment, the sky seemed to be cut open. At this moment, the Forbidden Land on the opposite side slowly turned around, and a terrifying demon appeared behind it. Zhang Xiu felt his body become heavy, as if his body was shackled by extremely heavy shackles. Suppression statue. He felt that the gravity underground had increased by tens of thousands of times. He couldn't even move his body, let alone the saber force. The invisible binding force in the space also rose to the highest point when the face completely turned around. In Heavenly Fantasy, I am the ruler. A strange voice sounded leisurely. That thing slowly raised its hand and pointed at the shadow pouncing toward Zhang Xiu. Immediately, he felt an unparalleled force crushing toward him. The saber light shattered in the air, and the space collapsed. The shadow's body floating in the air also turned into ashes little by little. Boom! The powerful force penetrated. Zhang Xiu, who was above the ground, flew backward. Although he landed firmly on the ground, he spat out a mouthful of blood. Su Ying and Ji Wuhua were shocked and lost their voices. Lord Sect Leader. Sect Leader Zhang. Zhang Xiu's long hair fluttered in the wind. His eyes were cold. He suddenly raised his hand, indicating that they shouldn't come over. At the same time, he was feeling the injuries in his body. The injuries were very strange. The corners of his mouth curled up into a smile. All falsehoods come from my heart. Like the Taoist seed, although the thing in the sky was real, it was also illusory. Since all appearances were not real, Zhang Xiu could naturally see through it. It was undeniable that this was an extremely advanced spell, far more advanced than the external physical force. If you could kill me with one blow, all troubles would be over. Unfortunately, he doesn't have such ability. Zhang Xiu slowly stood up, and the shadow behind him emerged again. However, this time, the shadow was far less solid than before. It should have something to do with his injuries. As he turned his hand, an ancient hymn sounded in the sky. A giant hand fell from the sky, covering the entire mountain. Come to my hand. Chapter 740. In the sky, the fingers of the giant hand reached down to the clouds and covered the entire mountain range. As the 5 fingers moved, the airflow below surged, and a strong wind blew, crushing everything with a rumbling sound. Under such heavenly might, the thing moved just like Zhang Xiu. Its face was contorted in pain, and the arm it raised to block the attack collapsed bit by bit. Seeing this, the people below cried out. However, the heavens and the earth were filled with a song that resounded between heaven and earth. The Forbidden Lord himself was already feeling a great pressure. The wind around him howled even more fiercely, and the incantation in his mouth became faster. The golden blood flowed even more fiercely. It was like magma flowing through the cracks in the rocks and into the depths of the earth. As a result, the strange power that emerged from the ground began to move upward. The higher it went, the stronger the howling wind became. It was difficult to control, and the whole ground felt like it was going to rise. However, the power above became even stronger. Zhang Xiu's face didn't change at all. His palm hurriedly and forcefully fell down. A golden sword light shot over. After a blur, it turned into a giant sword that was hundreds of feet long. Before the sword light could shine, it was immediately defeated bit by bit, as if it had been hit by a big truck. Under such power, the sword technique was like child's play. The thing began to escape. The wings behind it flapped vigorously. It flashed in the sky as fast as lightning. In an instant, it crossed dozens of miles, and in an instant, it crossed hundreds of miles. It was really amazing. But, no matter how he struggled, no matter how hard he tried, the giant hand from the heavens continued to envelop him. What was even more strange was that the giant monster kept flying around, as if it was escaping in the same space. It never escaped from the range of the giant hand. How could this be? Hua Yufeng said in shock. In their opinion, as long as it rushed forward in a straight line, it would be able to escape. But why did it come back in the end? It was like a ghost hitting a wall. What happened to the monster under the giant hand? Why was it like this? The Forbidden Master's face was filled with pain. His eyes were tightly shut, and his face was pale. Cold sweat dripped down his back, and his incantations became more and more hurried. Before, he had been calm, but now, it seemed like he was struggling on his deathbed. It felt like his strength could no longer keep up with the speed of the incantation. It didn't feel like he was reciting the incantation, but more like he was being dragged forward by the incantation. He had no choice but to recite the incantation, and he would collapse at any moment. Pooh! Before his voice even fell, he opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of blood. It was bright red, and not the dazzling golden color of molten gold. However, his incantation stopped, not daring to stop in the slightest. Forbidden Master! The sect masters and elders of the Immortal Tribulation sect shouted in unison. They could see that the Forbidden Lord was at the end of his tether and wouldn't be able to hold on for much longer. Not only was he being suppressed, but he was also bleeding to death. Because of this pause, the speed of the monster in the sky also slowed down, but the towering hand did not stop at all and mercilessly covered it. Rumble! A ferocious glint flashed in the creature's eyes as it opened its mouth and roared. However, the giant palm mercilessly crushed it. Under the powerful force, the creature's body began to crumble bit by bit from the front until it completely turned into fragments and disappeared without a trace. Pooh! The Forbidden Lord spat out another mouthful of blood, but this time, he could no longer hold on. He clutched his chest with a pained expression, and the rune on his forehead slowly dimmed. The gravel and soil that were slowly rising around him all fell down. Boom! The earth shook. Ancestor! The Forbidden Lord destroyed Jiang Xiu's divine ability once, and Jiang Xiu also destroyed him once. However, the divine ability he used to destroy Jiang Xiu did indeed injure Jiang Xiu, but that was because Jiang Xiu's innate divine ability, so the injury was not serious. On the other hand, the Forbidden Lord activated the power of the Forbidden Land that exceeded the limits of his body. Once he was injured, the consequences would be unpredictable. Die for this sovereign! Jiang Xiu had no intention of holding back at all. His figure flashed and appeared in the sky. At the same time, the saber light in his hand had already slashed down. Wherever the saber light passed, the ground would explode. When he looked up again, all he saw was a flash of saber light. Puchi! The saber light pierced through his body and pushed backward. In an instant, the entire upper valley fell silent. Everyone's eyes widened in disbelief. They kept saying in their hearts that they must have seen wrongly. However, they really saw the Forbidden Lord being pierced by the saber light. The Forbidden Lord stood there motionlessly, as if he had been there since ancient times. Around him was a mess. Rocks had collapsed, and trees had fallen. It was as if the Forbidden Lord of this place was trying to show off his sorrow at this moment. The Forbidden Lord's standing body began to move, and he fell to the ground, motionless. He's dead. Everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect was dumbfounded. The Forbidden Lord was a person with an imperial inheritance. He even used the power of the Forbidden Land. How could it be? How could it be? Impossible. They really wanted to roar out loud. But he was really dead. He was killed by Jiang Xiu. The cold corpse told them that everything was true. How could this be? Hua Yufeng walked to the corpse with difficulty. He couldn't be more dead. His eyes were bulging, and his body was cut in half. Blood kept gushing out, and his vitality had long been cut off. It doesn't make sense. Elder Yu and Elder Song looked at each other. They had thought of thousands of possibilities, but they had never thought of this. They had wanted to borrow the hand of the master of the forbidden area to kill Jiang Xiu. Who would have thought that the master of the forbidden area would be the one to be killed? Their feelings were very complicated at this moment. Jiang Xiu said, "What should we do now?" What was even more terrifying was that Jiang Xiu was so powerful, and the Immortal Tribulation sect had fallen out with him. What could they do to resist and appease him? In that kind of battle, even if they all attacked together, they might not be able to gain an advantage. If the heavens raised its hand, everything would be crushed into powder. The power under the ground didn't seem to show any signs of stopping. It was still surging. Jiang Xiu frowned and looked into the ground. His eye technique couldn't see very deep, but the eyes of the shadow behind him could see thousands of feet below the ground. He saw an earth-colored crystal bead. The golden blood flowed into the earth-colored crystal bead, stimulating the earth-colored crystal bead. It emitted a strange power that allowed the master of the Forbidden Land to use his emperor-level secret technique, heavenly illusion. He didn't even have this kind of ability himself. It was a kind of overload. The reason he lost was not because Jiang Xiu's power was stronger than his. It was because of the Tao seed. With Jiang Xiu's strength, he couldn't use such a powerful spell. Jiang Xiu felt that the part of the heavenly illusion's attack was very special. It was a kind of psychological and physical injury, not an external injury. He concluded that the heavenly illusion's attack was similar to the Tao seed, but it was much more advanced. And just as the opponent succeeded, Jiang Xiu also secretly planted a Tao seed on the Forbidden Lord. He never thought that Jiang Xiu would have such a move. The Forbidden Lord was overloaded when he used the heavenly illusion, so he would definitely be affected by it. He definitely couldn't tell whether it was the heavenly illusion or the Tao seed. Without any complaints, he was hit by Jiang Xiu's Tao. What happened next was simple. All of Jiang Xiu's attacks would be seen as real. Sometimes, people were like this. They could see others, but they couldn't see themselves. He never thought that he was defeated by a Tao seed that wasn't even good enough to carry the shoes of the heavenly illusion. What's that? Jiang Xiu's heart skipped a beat. All of the power of the Forbidden Lord came from this. If that was the case, this bead would be incredible. It would definitely be a treasure that was higher than the heavenly illusion. After looking around, Jiang Xiu decided to go for the treasure first. A saber light flashed in his eyes, and a ball of fierce flames burned in his body. In the next moment, he had already drilled into the ground. The temperature at the bottom of the ground would get higher and higher, and the pressure would also get stronger and stronger. However, there was no reason to miss such a precious treasure. The people of the Immortal Tribulation sect also realized that something was wrong. Zhang Luoxia had drilled into the ground, and then they thought of the various things that happened before. Hua Yufeng and the others also thought of something, but Jiang Xiu had already gone down. He had already gone deep into the Earth's magma. He was surrounded by fiery red magma, and only the earth-colored crystal was suspended quietly in the void. Chapter 741. The earthy yellow crystal stone seemed to be stained with the aura of the earth. Jiang Xiu was pleasantly surprised. Such a supreme treasure must contain the law, and its power was so great. He had reason to believe that it might be an existence of a higher level than the water tribulation. It was buried deep in the ground and at such a high temperature, but it was still intact. In addition, the power displayed by the Lord of the Forbidden Area not only contained the law, but also had an extremely powerful special effect. Jiang Xiu stretched out his hand. To be on the safe side, he paused for a moment to make sure that the earthy yellow crystal stone was not confined to the surface. Just the power it emitted almost killed Jiang Xiu. If it really released its power, Jiang Xiu would be killed in minutes. After the crystal stone was in his hand, Jiang Xiu felt a gentle qi. If he guessed correctly, only when it was stained with special blood would it emit power. Otherwise, it would not have any lethality. He wanted to refine the crystal stone on the spot, but as soon as he tried to refine it, he encountered a force of confinement, like a layer of film protecting the crystal stone. Moreover, he felt a strong immortal power. This was a confinement set by an immortal cultivator. If he was not mistaken, it should be at the level of immortal emperor. Not to mention that he was not at the level now. Even if he reached the level of God, he would not have the chance to break the immortal confinement. But fortunately, this crystal stone was not so destructive. Jiang Xiu gave up on refining it and peeped into the power inside. He felt the vast aura of earth. He had felt it just now. Great! Jiang Xiu was overjoyed after he peeped into the law inside the crystal stone. There was a complete law of earth inside. If it was not complete, the crystal stone would not be able to reach its current level and power. Among the 6 weapons of his great art of God sealing, the fire element was missing. The law of earth was blank. Now that he had obtained the law of earth by chance, it would be a big step towards the great art of God sealing. According to Jiang Xiu's own deduction, his divine body was very likely to advance to the level of divine emperor after entering the mature period. But with the great art of God sealing, the possibility was even greater. If he could not become a divine emperor after being ranked 9th in the 3000 Great Tao, it would be too much. What a pleasant surprise! Jiang Xiu had come here to save Shui Wuyao. He had not expected to obtain the law of earth. After comprehending the law of earth, he was only half a step away from forming the great God sealing technique's God sealing monument. In other words, he was only a small step away from becoming a God King. He was only a small step away from reaching the God King realm. He could almost see the divine emperor waving at him again. If it weren't for the fact that the time and place weren't right, he would have sat down and started cultivating. However, his third Pratasa's talent split into countless lines of thought and probed into the crystal. Then, his whole body emerged from the ground. He had spent a month in real time on heavenly water, but in reality, he had spent more than 700 years. As for the law of earth, because he had 5 laws, his concealment ability was stronger, so it should have been slower. However, with heaven-defying Jiang Xiu's second talent, time was not a problem at all. Seeing Jiang Xiu emerge with the crystal in his hand, everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect could not remain calm. This was the most precious treasure of the forbidden area. How could they let Jiang Xiu take it away? Hua Yufeng said, "Sect Master Jiang, this item belongs to my Immortal Tribulation sect." Jiang Xiu said indifferently, "I know. It was dug out from your family's land. Of course, it belongs to your Immortal Tribulation sect." Hua Yufeng said, "Since you're sure that this treasure belongs to my Immortal Tribulation sect, you and I are both immortal sects. You should return this treasure to our sect." "Return?" Hua Yufeng and the others all nodded. Jiang Xiu said, "We're both immortal sects. Of course, I should return it. But now is not the time." He mocked in his heart. "Things have already turned out this way. Don't you have any idea whether I'll return it or not? We've already killed him. Of course, we'll take the treasure." The expressions of Hua Yufeng and the others changed at the same time, especially Elder Yu and Elder Song. Their faces were sullen, and their eyes were so dull that they began to doubt their lives. "Who am I? Where am I from?" "Sect Master Jiang, this is not what immortals do." Jiang Xiu's eyes turned cold. "You wanted to steal the Misty Sword's soul. You'd rather let him go crazy than cure him. This is what immortals do. You knew that we were lured to the forbidden area. Not only did you protect the culprit, but you also wanted to kill us. Is this what immortals do?" They were all speechless by Jiang Xiu's words. They all lowered their heads in shame. "Just a moment ago, you were still shouting that you wanted to kill me. But unfortunately, you didn't have enough means and were killed by me. Now that I've killed you and taken your treasure, what immortals do you want to talk to me about?" They had already turned against each other. It was really disgusting to talk about this. But Hua Yufeng didn't have any rules. They had all seen Jiang Xiu's strength. Even the master of the forbidden area couldn't do anything to Jiang Xiu. What right did they have to fight against Jiang Xiu? Jiang Xiu spoke to these people, but he didn't slow down his comprehension of the law of earth. He was still circulating various laws in his body, trying to cultivate. Hua Yufeng glared fiercely at Elder Yu and Elder Song. If it weren't for these two, today's matter wouldn't have happened. The master of the forbidden area was killed and the inheritance was stolen. If they couldn't deal with it, the 6 forbidden areas of the Immortal Tribulation sect would become the 5 forbidden areas. The latter two also felt that today's matter had gotten out of hand. They originally wanted to kill Zhang Xiu to settle the matter. Now, not to mention killing him, the master of the forbidden area was killed and the inheritance was stolen. They were definitely going to be punished. Losing the inheritance was a crime that even the sect master couldn't bear, not to mention they were only elders. Their faces were ashen. It was over. Hua Yufeng said, "My Tribulation Immortal sect was indeed in the wrong in this matter. Sect Master Zhang, we apologize to you here. We were too reckless just now. Even if you don't give us face, Elder Shui is your friend. Just consider it as giving him face." When Shui Wuyao was mentioned, Zhang Xiu became even angrier. Su Ying was also trembling with anger. Now that they knew Shui Wuyao was an elder of the sect, they would rather he stay crazy forever. They would torture him and steal his sword spirit. When they needed him, they would bring out his identity. Zhang Xiu said coldly, "Who said Shui Wuyao would definitely ask this sovereign to return the inheritance to you? Who knows, he might even clap and praise this sovereign for doing well." Zhang Xiu's words made the faces of everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect turn ugly. Although Zhang Xiu's words were unpleasant to hear, it was possible. If Shui Wuyao woke up, he would probably go crazy again after seeing what the elders of the sect had done to him and the attitude of the sect towards this matter. Hua Yufeng said with a bitter face, "But it's also possible that Elder Shui would ask Sect Master Jiang to return the inheritance? How about this? We'll arrange for you to stay in the sect. Immortal Dr. Ji will treat you. If you wake up, Elder Shui will decide." Zhang Xiu could say no. If he wanted to take Shui Wuyao away, no one here could stop him. However, if he really did that, Shui Wuyao would be in the most difficult position. He had already gone crazy for himself for a while and even suffered such humiliation. Zhang Xiu didn't want to make things difficult for him a second time. He muttered, "Then this sovereign will stay for now." Hua Yufeng saw Zhang Xiu agree and let out a sigh of relief. As long as the inheritance was left in the sect, there would be a chance. He said, "That's good. Then I ask Sect Master Jiang and everyone to move." Zhang Xiu then left the forbidden grounds. Ji Wuhua and Su Ying brought Shui Wuyao and followed closely behind. "Sect Master, that's the sect's inheritance. How can we let—" Elder Yu said halfway when Hua Yufeng angrily said, "Shut up. Haven't you caused enough trouble?" Elder Yu helplessly shut his mouth. Hua Yufeng's gaze was uncertain. He said, "Zhang Luoxia definitely won't let you go. Even if he's willing to return the inheritance, you won't have a good ending. At this moment, we must think of a way to snatch the inheritance." All the elders present nodded in agreement. They didn't want to lose the 2 elders and also didn't want to lose the inheritance. Hua Yufeng's stalling was to stabilize Zhang Xiu. All the elders' eyes flashed with a gloomy light. Zhang Xiu moved to Shui Wuyao's palace. No one had cleaned this place for 60 years and it was very messy. The disciples hurriedly cleaned up the place while Ji Wuhua began treating Shui Wuyao's illness. The crystal in Zhang Xiu's hand never left his body. "Immortal Dr. Ji, how long will it take?" Ji Wuhua replied, "The fastest is 2 months. Chapter 742. On this side, Ji Wuhua had officially started treating Shui Wuyao's illness. Of course, some of the basic herbs couldn't be harvested by herself, so as to avoid the Immortal Tribulation sect taking action against her. This task fell on Su Ying's shoulders, while Zhang Xiu held onto the crystal stones and cultivated. AI. Su Ying looked at the bright starry sky and let out a long sigh. Her eyes revealed an intoxicated sadness. Today's matter could be said to have hurt her deeply. A sect to an immortal cultivator was like a family to a mortal. How could she not be bitterly disappointed when her family treated her and her adoptive father like this? "Why are you here alone?" Suing looked back and said nervously, "Sect Master Jiang." Then she looked inside the sect and asked, "How is my father?" Jiang Xiu sized her up and said, "Immortal Dr. Ji is treating him. You don't have to worry." Oh. She also believed that Shui Wu Yao would be fine. His illness wasn't particularly serious. It was just that the vile people of the sect pushed him into the abyss of hell. Her eyes dimmed once again. After father wakes up, we don't know how we'll survive in the immortal tribulation sect. This time, they had offended quite a number of people, from the sect master to the disciples. Since they couldn't find trouble with Jiang Xiu, they would probably vent their anger on the father and daughter duo. One could imagine how their days would be. Especially when Shui Wu Yao found out that he was abused by his fellow sect members. With his arrogance, he couldn't accept it. A king couldn't be humiliated. If he couldn't accept it and made a scene, then he wouldn't be able to get along with his fellow sect members. Jiang Xiu said, "You don't have to worry about this. It's not your fault." Some people, in order to protect their sect's strength, would turn a blind eye to the actions of those so-called immortal kings. They didn't know that this was not the way to control one's subordinates. If it were Jiang Xiu, he would rather lose part of his sect's strength than easily persecute his fellow sect members. But Hua Yufeng shouldn't be such a person. From his attitude at that time, it could be seen that he wanted to protect those two immortal kings. As for Jiang Xiu, it wasn't that he didn't want to kill the two of them. If Jiang Xiu wanted to kill them, it would be easy for him to do so. However, he wanted to keep the two of them alive for Shui Wu Yao to personally take revenge. I'm just worried that it'll be difficult for father after he wakes up." Jiang Xiu coldly said, "How hard can it be? Towards those who persecute themselves and scheme to steal the sword spirit, there is only one word to describe them: kill them. As for those who are coerced into following them, kill them." Suing said, "Sect Master Jiang is a great hero, a great hero. His natural disposition is free and easy. We are only mediocre people." Just now, when I went to the Immortal Medical Pavilion to get some medicine, I actually met a few senior martial sisters who were old friends with me. It's like I've become a traitor. Jiang Xiu looked at Su Ying, whose eyes were dim. For the sake of the mist, she had paid a huge price. At the end, she thought that she had received spring, but she did not expect that the result would be like this. For a full 60 years, the fellow disciple whom she had been thinking about, the senior sister of the same sect whom she had been thinking about, had regarded her as a traitor. This feeling was indeed very uncomfortable. "Xiaoying, the yellow dragon grass is gone." Ji Wuhua's voice came from the palace. "Oh, I'll go get it now." Jiang Xiu reached out to stop her and said, "It's better for me to go." So that Su Ying would not be humiliated again if she met her senior martial sister. "But father and immortal Dr. Ji," Jiang Xiu said, "it's fine. I can tell anyone who enters here. No one can make things difficult for your father and Fairy Ji under my eyes." Su Ying nodded in relief after hearing this. Jiang Xiu flew towards the Immortal Medical Pavilion. The starry sky of the Immortal Tribulation sect was exceptionally beautiful at night. The sky was dotted with stars, and bright lights were lit everywhere in the sect. The Immortal Tribulation sect was probably 3 times larger than Tianqing School. The number of disciples was also 7 or 8 times larger, possibly reaching 1,000,000. 1,000,000 immortal cultivators, placed anywhere, was a powerful force. As the saying goes, quantity leads to qualitative change. If there was a large-scale formation, its power would be enough to kill an immortal king or even stronger. With the inheritance of the Immortal Tribulation sect, there should be hundreds of thousands or even millions of disciples. However, large-scale formations certainly had their weaknesses, which was that they were clumsy and did not know how to cultivate. Each disciple was busy with their own cultivation and did not have time to gather together to cultivate this thing. Tianqing School also had a similar formation. Although the number of disciples was far less than the Immortal Tribulation sects, It was not that they had not practiced together before. That day, when they faced the Tai Hua sect, they also made a move, but they could not display its power at all. Unless they knew in advance that a great enemy was coming, everyone in the sect would practice together. Jiang, Sect Master Jiang. Seeing Jiang Xiu's arrival, the disciples of the Immortal Medical Pavilion trembled in fear. Jiang Luoxia's name was like thunder in their ears. Today's battle had made everyone in the Immortal Tribulation sect angry, but they were also convinced. These disciples were so scared that their legs turned to jelly when they saw him. "Get the yellow dragon grass for me." Jiang Xiu was not afraid of her adulterating or drugging. With Ji Wuhua, the top immortal doctor, no one could fool her. "Yes. Sect Master Jiang, why are you here?" Suddenly, a voice drifted over. Jiang Xiu turned around and saw a girl around 16 or 17 years old. She was wearing a snow-white robe, revealing her slender waist. Her face was beautiful, and her feet were as white as jade. Her toes were as clear as crystal, and when they landed on the ground, they spread out slightly. There was also a red band around her ankle. This girl could only be found in the heavens. This little girl is Yongling. The elders of the sect all call me Fourth Mother. If Sect Master Jiang does not mind, you can also call me Fourth Mother. The members of the Immortal Martial Sect were able to accept the term Mother, and even felt close to it. However, it was a little difficult for Jiang Xiu to accept it. Mother, in his mind, this term was equivalent to a mother. Calling her Fourth Mother was like calling his father's fourth concubine. Jiang Xiu coldly replied, disapproving of his words. "Sect Master Jiang, this trip is for," Jiang Xiu said, "the yellow dragon grass." That disciple ran over and said, "Sect Master Jiang, the yellow dragon grass has been used up. There is not a single stalk left. Can you wait until tomorrow morning so that I can go to the medicinal valley to pick some earlier?" Normally, they would not pick herbs at night, but there were some special herbs that could only be picked at night. However, it was more of a taboo. Any sparks would be too big of a threat to the medicinal garden. Jiang Xiu's face turned cold. "You want me to wait?" Seeing this, that disciple was shocked. Yang Xinyang, who was beside him, said, "If Sect Master Jiang is in a hurry, Xinyang will bring you to pick them." "This disciple does not have the authority to do so." Yang Xinyang seemed to be an elder of the Immortal Tribulation sect. Since her cultivation was at the Immortal King realm, she should be an elder. "Lead the way." There were many small thatched huts in the medicinal valley. However, after night fell, there were not many people. Other than those who were guarding the distant garden, the medicinal herbs sparkled brilliantly as far as the eye could see. It was indescribably beautiful. After passing through the entrance and entering the depths of the medicinal valley, everything became quiet. The sky was very deep, as if one could reach out and pluck the stars. The person in front was wearing thin clothes, the lapels of her clothes fluttering in the wind. Jiang Xiu asked. A delicate fragrance wafted into his nose. This fragrance was rather similar to begonia flowers. Could this be the fragrance of this fairy's body? He immediately became vigilant. "Did you ask about the fragrance?" Yang Xinyang said, "Of course I smell it. This is the medicinal valley. There are medicinal fragrances everywhere." Jiang Xiu said, "It's not medicinal. It's a fragrance similar to begonia flowers." "This fragrance is very strange." Jiang Xiu reached out and grabbed Yang Xinyang's wrist. The latter cried out in surprise and turned her head. Jiang Xiu was stunned. Because at this moment, Yang Xinyang's clear and otherworldly eyes were bloodshot. Her cheeks were filled with sparkling tears. She was actually crying. "What are you?" Yang Xinyang's tears fell like rain, but she kept shaking her head. "Don't ask. I won't tell." Jiang Xiu felt more and more strange. Something was wrong with Yang Xinyang's situation. The soft hand that was grabbed by Jiang Xiu was faintly burning. "Hold your breath. Don't breathe in the fragrance." Yang Xinyang's beautiful hair was messed up by the wind. She said weakly, Sect Master Jiang, Xinjiang has no strength. Help me. There's a thatched hut in front. Let's go there and rest. Yang Xinjiang's body was limp. She had no strength at all. She could not even lift her arms. Zhang Xiu could only support her as they walked into the hut. However, Zhang Xiu was very confident. He did not think that any medicine would be effective on Jiang Luoxia. It could be said that the skilled were bold. An enticing fragrance wafted into his nose. Chapter 743. This was an almost abandoned house. It was dilapidated, as if no one had set foot here for a long time. After the two of them entered, Yang Xinjiang said, Sect Master Jiang, I don't have any strength left. Her voice was soft and delicate. Zhang Xiu also realized that something was wrong. Just as he was about to speak, he felt Yang Xinjiang very close to him. The room was dark and blurry, but he could vaguely make out her figure. In a daze, he only felt that her fragrance was very pleasant. It was the fragrance of begonia flowers, mixed with Yang Xinjiang's body fragrance. It entered Zhang Xiu's nostrils, and even with his willpower, he couldn't help but take a few more breaths. He reached out to cover Yang Xinjiang's mouth and nose. Zhang Xiu thought highly of himself and felt that no medicine could affect him. However, Yang Xinjiang was different. If she was drugged, it would be troublesome. Therefore, he covered Yang Xinjiang's mouth and nose. It was warm and soft to the touch, and he said, Don't breathe. It would have been better if he didn't say it. Once he said it, Yang Xinjiang went limp in Zhang Xiu's arms. Her whole body felt strange, and her face was hot. She wanted to sit up, but she couldn't move. Her body was soft. Sect Master Jiang, Xinjiang, can't move. Zhang Xiu's body was also hot, and his mind was rippling. You, what's wrong with you? He was shocked, and thought that something was wrong. You, what are you doing? Yang Xinjiang's delicate body twisted slightly, and her voice was soft. I think, because of you, I fell sick. My body is burning up. Zhang Xiu thought to himself, how could I possibly make you sick? Don't let go, Xinjiang can't stand, support Xinjiang. How was this supporting? She was sticking close to Zhang Xiu just now, and Zhang Xiu felt that it was inappropriate, so he moved away a little. This meant that they had to stick close to each other. When Zhang Xiu heard it, he felt an indescribable gentleness, and felt his blood boil. Why are you like this? Can't you support Xinjiang a little? Her voice was soft, half pleading and half reproaching. Zhang Xiu felt that the other party had probably been drugged. Things were not looking good for him, but he firmly believed that he could stand his ground. Even so, he did not panic at all. Even though Zhang Xiu would not feel too much of a psychological burden if he really did something, it would not be good for Yang Xinjiang. After all, she was a girl. Moreover, his consciousness was already blurred and he was no longer clear-headed. "I-oh." Suddenly, she let out a soft gasp. Her body trembled as she pressed herself against Zhang Xiu's chest. Fourth mother is going to die. Fourth mother is going to die. Boom. Zhang Xiu's mind completely exploded and went blank. How did he die? Yang Xinjiang turned her hand over and grabbed Zhang Xiu's wrist tightly. Who said she didn't have any strength? She still had a lot of strength. However, she was still breathing heavily as she said, I'm going to die because of you, I'm going to die. Zhang Xiu was about to speak, but his neck was hooked. Her head came closer, and her voice was like a dream, so comfortable. So comfortable. A voice as soft as cotton drifted over. Zhang Xiu only felt that it was like the sound of nature. He could not see her face clearly in the darkness, but the image of her crying face appeared in his mind. Her breath was heavy, and he could feel the heat and fragrance of her red lips. Fourth mother is going to die. Zhang Xiu thought back to everything that happened just now. There didn't seem to be anything wrong with it. He smelled the scent of begonia, a kind of blood-red begonia. It did have a very strong medicinal effect, but he was sure that he could completely resist it. Even the immortal king realm was not a problem, but why was it so strange? Yang Xingyang was definitely not a loose person. If she was, she would not be so pure. It must be because of the medicine, but would Begonia make her lose control? At this moment, Jiang Xiu still maintained a little bit of rationality. Everything was very strange, and he thought that it was very likely that it was a scheme of the Immortal Tribulation sect. If he really did sully Yang Xingyang and took her pure body, when they transmigrated, Jiang Xiu would not be able to defend himself even if he was innocent. No matter how shameless a scumbag was, he would probably have to admit it when he encountered such a situation. When the time came, if the other party wanted to ask for the inheritance, Jiang Xiu would not be able to say anything. At least, Jiang Xiu would not be able to face Yang Xingyang. Sect leader Jiang, what are you waiting for? Of course, you can get any woman you want, but this woman is different. She is not someone you can get just because you want to. There are countless people who covet her. She has a special physique that is hard to come by in 1,000 years. The Seven Immortals physique. A voice came from afar. We have created this opportunity for you, so you have to grasp it well. The Seven Immortals Yuan Yin is an extinct treasure. Many immortal cultivators dream of it, and enjoy it to the extreme. Seven Immortals physique, Begonia flower. Jiang Xiu had read in an ancient book that people with the Seven Immortals physique could not touch the fragrance of begonia flower. Once they did, there would be a reaction. Their body fragrance and the fragrance of begonia flower would merge into one, and that would be fatal. Not good. Jiang Xiu secretly cursed. At this moment, his consciousness was blurred, and only a trace of clarity was left. He knew that he was about to fall into the trap. After a while, he would not be able to control himself anymore. At that time, he would be worse than a beast. At that moment, if the other party wanted to steal the inheritance, he would kill him if he wanted to. He was afraid that he would let them do whatever they wanted. It's so hot. Yang Xingyang's voice was extremely soft and uncomfortable. Her hands tore open her clothes. It's over. Once the mind was lost, everything would be too late. Just like now, Yang Xingyang had completely lost her mind. She only wanted to feel comfortable, and she kept pestering Jiang Xiu. Jiang Xiu knew that if he did not think of a way, the result would be death. Whoosh! A ball of flame rose from the dim thatched cottage. It was the supreme escape technique of the Heavenly Motion sect, the Heavenly Fire Traversing Heaven technique. Nothing in the vicinity could escape the eyes of the Immortal Tribulation sect. However, once Jiang Xiu went far away, the mist would shake, and the safety of Ji Wuhua and the others would be lost. Not good. Zhang Luoxia escaped with Elder Yang. After the flame exploded, the pattern in the cottage turned dark. They had already left. Lock on to the position. The tracking experts in the Immortal Tribulation sect acted immediately. In fact, they had already set up an inescapable trap. However, if a celestial king, especially one at the level of Jiang Xiu, wanted to escape, even if they did their homework, it would not be so easy to stop him. The east. No, it's the west. No, it's in the southwest. Hua Yufeng was furious. Where is he? These people were known as the best tracking experts in the Immortal Tribulation sect, but they could not even determine the position. It was a disgrace to the Immortal Tribulation sect. He's too fast. He continuously used the escape technique and constantly changed his position. He's an expert in preventing tracking, one of them explained. Hua Yufeng sighed. He had nowhere to vent his anger. It was not that his subordinates were too incompetent, but that Zhang Luoxia was too strong. Even the master of the Forbidden Grounds, many of the elders, were helpless. It was not surprising that they could not track him. It was just that he had overestimated the medicinal properties of the Seven Immortals begonia or underestimated Jiang Xiu's determination. Under such circumstances, he still managed to escape in such an orderly manner. As the saying goes, even if you die under the peony skirt, you will still be a romantic ghost. Shouldn't a man completely lose his mind at this time? He escaped by himself. Isn't he afraid that we'll attack Ji Wuhua and Shui Wuyao? Hua Yufeng said angrily. We're in trouble now. We wasted the 7 immortals' vital een and still can't take down Jiang Luoxia. When he turns back, we may be in trouble, an elder on the side said with a frown. Everyone present sighed in sorrow. Right now, we can't just sit and wait for death. Although Jiang Luoxia may not really care about Shui Wuyao, Ji Wuhua, and the others, we'd better take them down first. At least, we'll have the capital to negotiate with Jiang Luoxia. Although Hua Yufeng disdained this kind of behavior, he had already betrayed an elder. There was no need to talk about the bottom line. For the sake of the sect's inheritance, he did not care about his face anymore. Alright, we can only do this now. Go take down Ji Wuhua. We must capture Jiang Luoxia before the medicinal properties of the begonia disappear. This is the most important thing. We can't bet on Jiang Xiu's kindness. Yes. As the sound of his voice faded, the tracking expert continued to lock onto Jiang Xiu's location while the other group of people rushed towards Ji Wuhua's location. One must know that Ji Wuhua wasn't someone easy to deal with. They could easily capture her. She was also an immortal king, and according to the legends of the immortal martial continent, in order to kill an immortal king, it would require at least 4 immortal kings to act together. Sometimes, capturing an immortal king alive was even harder than killing the target. The safest method was to mobilize 5 immortal kings. You're tuning in to the Narrate and Escape YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.